The boardroom doors burst open at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night. Lena Hart, CEO of Hart Global Industries, walked in wearing jeans and a simple blouse, flanked by a grease-stained mechanic in work boots. 12 executives froze. The acting chairman's pen stopped mid-signature on the emergency resolution that would strip her of everything. She smiled coldly and said 5 words that shattered the coup before it began. "I have all the evidence." But this story doesn't start in a boardroom. It starts 3 days earlier in a small garage on the wrong side of town, when a woman who owned half the city asked a single father with nothing to lose a question that would change both their lives forever. If you want to know how a mechanic ended up saving a corporate empire, and how a billionaire CEO learned what real power actually means, stay with me until the end, and please, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Ryan Cole wiped his hands on an oil-stained rag, leaving dark smears across the faded cotton. It was nearly 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, and the garage smelled like motor oil, old coffee, and the particular metallic tang that came from a full day of brake work. His back ached from being bent over engine blocks since 6 that morning. His knuckles were scraped raw. His shoulders carried the familiar weight of exhaustion that came with being a single father who worked 12-hour days just to keep the lights on. He glanced at his phone. 2 missed calls from the after-school program. His daughter Emma was probably the last kid there again, waiting for him with that patient smile she'd learned too young. She was 7 years old and already understood that Daddy worked late because he had to, not because he wanted to. That understanding broke his heart a little more every time he saw it in her eyes. Ryan killed the overhead lights one by one, the fluorescent tubes clicking off in sequence and plunging the small garage into shadow. Through the front windows, the street outside was quiet, just a few scattered streetlights illuminating cracked pavement and the bodega on the corner that stayed open until midnight. This neighborhood wasn't dangerous exactly, but it wasn't the kind of place where people lingered after dark either. He was reaching for the keys to lock up when he heard the door chime. Ryan turned, ready to tell whoever it was that they were closed, and the words died in his throat. The woman standing in his doorway didn't belong here. That was his first thought, immediate and visceral. She was perhaps 28 or 29, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and features that would have stopped traffic anywhere. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes that were intelligent and searching. She wore jeans and a cream-colored blouse that probably cost more than his monthly rent, though she'd clearly tried to dress down. There was something about her posture, the way she held herself, that spoke of money and education and a world completely foreign to this part of town. But it wasn't her beauty or her obvious wealth that made Ryan forget to breathe for a moment. It was the way she looked at him, direct, assessing, and somehow vulnerable all at once. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice was softer than he'd expected, with a hint of uncertainty that seemed at odds with everything else about her. "I know you're closed. I saw you turning off the lights, but I need to ask you something." Ryan set down his keys. "Ma'am, if it's about your car, I can get you in first thing tomorrow morning. I'm running solo here, and I really need to—" "It's not about a car." She stepped fully inside, and he caught the faint scent of something expensive, perfume that probably had a French name he couldn't pronounce. Well, not about fixing one anyway. She seemed to be gathering courage, which struck Ryan as strange. Women who looked like her, who carried themselves with that kind of polish, didn't usually need courage to talk to guys like him. "This is going to sound crazy," she continued, wrapping her arms around herself despite the warmth of the evening. "I've been driving past this garage for 3 days, trying to work up the nerve to come in, watching you work, trying to figure out if—" She trailed off, and Ryan felt a prickle of unease. "Ma'am, if this is some kind of, will you be my date this weekend?" The words came out in a rush, like she had to say them quickly or not at all. "To a family engagement party. Just one evening. I'll pay you for your time, of course, and—" "Whoa, hold on." Ryan held up his grease-stained hands. "I don't know what you think this is, but I'm not propositioning you." Color rose in her cheeks, and for the first time she looked flustered, more human. "God, I'm doing this terribly. Let me start over." She took a breath. "My name is Lena Hart. I have to attend a family event this weekend, My cousin's engagement party, and I need a date. Not a boyfriend, not someone I'm actually seeing, just someone to go with me so I don't have to field questions all night about why I'm alone. Again. Ryan studied her carefully. She didn't look dangerous. She looked tired, actually, now that he was paying attention. There were shadows under those striking eyes, a tightness around her mouth that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. "Why me?" he asked finally. "You could hire an escort service or ask a friend or—" "Because you're real," Lena interrupted. She gestured around the small garage, at the tools hung neatly on pegboards, at the work orders clipped to a board by the register, at the faded photo of a little girl taped to the cash box. "You have a life. A daughter, I'm guessing. You work with your hands. You're not going to try to impress my family or angle for business connections or see me as some kind of opportunity. You're just normal." "Normal," Ryan repeated, unsure if that was a compliment or an insult. "I know how this sounds," Lena said quietly. "Some rich girl slumming it, looking for an authentic experience. But I promise you, it's not like that. I just need one evening where I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not, where I can show up with someone genuine and not have to explain myself. And you seem like the most genuine person I've seen in a very long time." There was something in her voice, a loneliness that Ryan recognized because he carried it himself. The particular isolation that came from being responsible for everything and everyone, with no one to share the weight. "I have a daughter," he heard himself say. "She's 7. I can't just drop everything for some party with strangers." "What if I pay for a sitter?" Lena asked immediately. "The best one in the city. Someone fully vetted and bonded. And I'll pay you $1,000 for one evening. 4 hours max. We go to the party, we stay long enough to be polite, and then I take you home. That's it." $1,000. Ryan's mind immediately started calculating. That was Emma's after-school program for 2 months. That was the leak in the garage roof he'd been putting off. That was breathing room in a life that never seemed to have any. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked, watching her face carefully. "And I want the truth, not the sanitized version." Lena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I'm tired of people looking at me and only seeing what I can do for them. I'm tired of every interaction being a transaction. I'm tired of being alone in rooms full of people who all want something. And I saw you through that window, working late, checking your phone every 10 minutes, and I thought, there's someone who understands responsibility, someone who shows up even when it's hard, someone who might actually see me as a person instead of an opportunity." The honesty in those words hit Ryan harder than he'd expected. He'd been alone since Emma's mother walked out 3 years ago, leaving nothing but a note and an empty closet. He'd been shouldering every burden solo for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone actually see him. Not as a single dad or a struggling mechanic or someone to be pitied, but as a person. "One evening," he said slowly. 4 hours. You pay for the sitter, and I get the money up front. And if anything feels off or weird, I walk. No questions, no explanations." Relief flooded Lena's face, transforming it. "Yes, absolutely, all of that. I'll send you the sitter's information tomorrow, along with the details for Saturday evening. It's formal. I should have mentioned that. But I can help with the suit if you need—" "I have a suit," Ryan said, thinking of the one good outfit he owned, bought for his mother's funeral and worn to exactly 3 occasions since. "Might be a little out of style, but it's clean." "Perfect." Lena pulled out her phone, then paused. "I need your number, and your full name." "Ryan Cole." He rattled off his number, watching as she typed it in with elegant manicured fingers that had probably never changed a tire or scraped rust off an exhaust manifold. She looked up and smiled, and it was genuine this time. Not the polished, careful smile from when she'd first walked in, but something warmer and more vulnerable. "Thank you, Ryan. You have no idea how much this means to me." After she left, Ryan stood in the empty garage for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The rational part of his brain was screaming that this was insane. The people didn't just walk into random garages and offer strangers $1,000 to attend parties, that there had to be something he was missing. But the part of him that was so tired of struggling, so exhausted from carrying everything alone, wanted to believe that maybe sometimes kindness was just kindness, that maybe someone could look at his oil-stained hands and see competence instead of poverty, that maybe, just for one evening, he could be someone other than the guy who was always 3 bills behind and 2 hours late picking up his kid. He locked up the garage and headed for his truck, an ancient Ford that burned oil and needed a new transmission but ran well enough to get him where he needed to go. As he drove toward the after-school program, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Lena. I forgot to say, please don't Google me before Saturday. I know that's a weird request, but I'd really appreciate it if you could just meet me as Lena, not as whoever the internet says I am, if that's okay." Ryan stared at the message at the next red light. It was a strange request, sure, but then again, everything about this evening had been strange. "Okay," he typed back. "See you Saturday." Emma was sitting on the front steps of the community center when he pulled up, her pink backpack beside her and her nose buried in a library book. She looked up when his truck rumbled to a stop, and her whole face lit up with that smile that made every long day worth it. "Hey, Daddy." She climbed into the passenger seat, carefully buckling her seatbelt like he'd taught her. "Mrs. Rodriguez said you called and said you were going to be extra late. Did you have a big job?" "Something like that, sweetheart." Ryan reached over and ruffled her hair, earning a giggle. "You hungry? I was thinking maybe we could pick up pizza." "Really?" Emma's eyes went wide. Pizza was a treat they couldn't usually afford. "What's the special occasion?" Ryan thought about the woman in his garage, about the strange request and the promised money and the uncertainty of what he'd just agreed to. "Just felt like celebrating," he said finally. "Sometimes you gotta do something special for no reason at all." The rest of the week passed in a blur of work and worry. True to her word, Lena had sent him the sitter's information on Wednesday, a professional service with impeccable credentials and references that made Ryan's head spin. The sitter arrived on Thursday evening for a trial run, a warm woman in her 50s named Margaret who had Emma laughing within 10 minutes and made Ryan feel like maybe, possibly, his daughter would be okay for one evening without him. Lena had also sent the address for Saturday, an estate in the hills overlooking the city, the kind of place Ryan had only ever seen in magazines. And she'd sent the money, transferred directly to his account with a simple note. "Thank you for taking a chance on this." Saturday arrived faster than Ryan would have liked. He spent the morning at the garage trying to distract himself with work. Emma had a play date at a friend's house, which gave him time to shower, shave, and wrestle himself into the suit that felt too tight across the shoulders and too loose everywhere else. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw exactly what he was: a mechanic playing dress-up, completely out of his depth. His phone buzzed at exactly 6 o'clock. "I'm outside. No pressure, but we should probably leave soon if we want to be fashionably late instead of just late." Ryan took a breath, kissed the top of Emma's head where she sat with Margaret in the living room, and headed outside. The car waiting at the curb made his footsteps falter. It was a Mercedes S-Class, midnight black and gleaming under the streetlights, the kind of vehicle that cost more than he'd make in 5 years. Maybe 10. The window rolled down and Lena looked out, wearing a dark blue dress that was elegant without being ostentatious, her hair styled in soft waves around her face. "Hi," she said, and she looked almost as nervous as he felt. "You clean up really well." "You too." Ryan climbed into the passenger seat, sinking into leather that probably cost more per square inch than his entire truck. The interior smelled like new car, and that same expensive perfume from the garage. "This is your car?" "One of them," Lena admitted, pulling away from the curb with the kind of smooth acceleration that came from German engineering and a price tag with too many zeros. "I know it's a lot, but I figured if we're going to do this, we should at least be comfortable." They drove in silence for a few minutes, heading toward the hills where the city's wealthy, clustered in gated communities and sprawling estates. Ryan watched the neighborhoods change through the window, from his working-class area to middle-class suburbs to the kind of manicured perfection that only serious money could buy. "You nervous?" Lena asked quietly. "Terrified," Ryan admitted. "I don't exactly run in these circles. The last formal event I went to was my high school graduation, and I'm pretty sure I spilled punch on the principal." That earned him a genuine laugh. "Honestly, most of the people at this party are terrified too. They're just better at hiding it behind expensive watches and practice small talk." "What should I know going in?" Ryan asked. "About your family, about what they expect?" Lena's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. My family is complicated. My cousin Sarah is the one getting engaged. She's sweet, a little naive, but she means well. Her fiancé is exactly the kind of guy our family approves of. Right school, right job, right connections. My aunt and uncle will be there, along with about 50 other people I'm only vaguely related to, and they'll all want to know who you are and what you do and whether you're worth their time. Should I lie? Ryan asked. Make up some impressive job title? God, no. Lena glanced over at him, and there was something fierce in her expression. That's exactly why I asked you to come, because you don't have to lie. You're a mechanic. You own your own business. You're a single father raising a daughter and doing a damn good job of it based on that picture in your garage. That's more real and more impressive than 90% of the people at this party. They turned through a set of massive iron gates that opened automatically, revealing a long driveway lined with manicured hedges and strategic lighting. At the end, perched on a hill with a view of the entire city spread out below, stood a house that made Ryan's brain struggle with the word house. It was a mansion. 3 stories of modern architecture and floor-to-ceiling windows, with luxury cars already lining the circular drive. Jesus, Ryan breathed. Yeah, Lena said softly. Welcome to my world. She parked between a Bentley and a Porsche, and Ryan suddenly understood why she'd brought the Mercedes. Anything less would have stood out. As they walked toward the entrance, Lena's hand found his elbow, not clinging, not desperate, just a gentle touch that said, "We're in this together." The door opened before they reached it, revealing a uniformed staff member who greeted Lena by name with professional warmth. "Miss Hart, how wonderful to see you. They're gathering on the terrace." Inside was exactly what Ryan had expected and somehow still overwhelming. Soaring ceilings, art that was probably worth more than his garage, and the low hum of conversation and laughter from the back of the house. Lena led him through rooms that seemed designed more for looking at than living in, until they emerged onto a sprawling terrace where at least 60 people mingled with champagne flutes and practiced ease. The conversation didn't exactly stop when they appeared, but Ryan felt the shift in attention. Eyes turned. Whispers started. A few people smiled in greeting, but most just assessed. He could feel them taking in his off-the-rack suit, his working man's hands, the way he clearly didn't belong. "Lena!" A younger woman broke away from a cluster near the railing, practically glowing with excitement. She wore a diamond the size of a marble on her left hand. "You came! I wasn't sure you'd make it, and you brought someone." "Hi, Sarah." Lena accepted a hug, and Ryan saw her relax fractionally. "This is Ryan. Ryan, my cousin Sarah, the guest of honor." "It's so nice to meet you," Sarah beamed at him with genuine warmth. "Any friend of Lena's is welcome here. What do you do, Ryan?" "I'm a mechanic," Ryan said, deciding to take Lena's advice and just be honest. "I own a small garage across town." "Oh, how wonderful!" Sarah's enthusiasm seemed genuine, though Ryan caught the flicker of confusion in her eyes. She was clearly trying to figure out how her cousin knew a mechanic. "My fiancé is around here somewhere. He'd love to talk cars. He just bought a vintage Porsche and he's obsessed with it." They made small talk for a few minutes before Sarah was pulled away by other guests. Lena snagged 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter and handed one to Ryan. "See?" she murmured. "Not so bad." But Ryan had caught the stares, the subtle way some people were leaning together and whispering while glancing in their direction. Whatever Lena's family was, they weren't used to her bringing mechanics to engagement parties. An older woman approached, her silver hair styled in an elegant chignon, her dress probably worth more than Ryan's truck. She had Lena's bone structure but none of her warmth. "Lena, darling." The woman air-kissed both of Lena's cheeks with practiced precision. "What a surprise to see you. We weren't sure you'd tear yourself away from the office long enough to attend." "Aunt Miriam," Lena's voice cooled several degrees. "I wouldn't miss Sarah's engagement. She's family." "Of course." Miriam's gaze slid to Ryan, sharp and assessing. "And who might this be?" "This is Ryan Cole." "Ryan, my Aunt Miriam Hart." Ryan extended his hand, and Miriam took it with the kind of brief, limp grip that said she was only being polite. "Hart?" he asked. "Same last name as Lena?" "It's my maiden name," Lena said smoothly. "I prefer to use it professionally." And what do you do, Mr. Cole? Miriam asked, and there was a predatory quality to the question. I'm a mechanic. I own Cole's Automotive. How industrious. The word was delivered with just enough condescension to sting. I don't believe I've heard of it. Is it a chain? No, ma'am, just me. Small operation, but we do good work. I'm sure. Miriam turned back to Lena. Darling, I need to steal you for just a moment. There are some people I'd like you to meet. Mr. Cole, I'm sure you won't mind if I borrow her briefly? It wasn't really a question. Lena shot Ryan an apologetic look, but he nodded. He could survive a few minutes alone. Except the moment Lena disappeared into the crowd with her aunt, Ryan became acutely aware of how much he didn't belong. People glanced at him, smiled politely, then turned away. Conversations happened around him, but not with him. He stood on the edge of a terrace full of people and felt completely invisible. He was considering whether it would be rude to check his phone when a man about his age approached, wearing a suit that probably cost what Ryan made in a month, and an expression of genuine curiosity. You're Lena's date, the man said. It wasn't a question. Ryan Cole. Ryan extended his hand, and this time got a firm shake in return. James Whitmore. I work with Lena. The man studied him with open interest. Gotta say, you're not her usual type. Didn't realize she had a type, Ryan said carefully. James laughed. Fair enough. Can I ask you something? Off the record, just personal curiosity. How did you two meet? Ryan considered lying, then decided against it. She came into my garage and asked me to come with her tonight. I said yes. She came into your garage. James repeated the word slowly, like he was trying to understand a foreign language. Lena Hart walked into an auto shop and asked you to be her date to a family party. That about sums it up. Jesus. James shook his head, looking genuinely impressed. That's the ballsiest thing I've heard all year. Good for her. What do you mean? Ryan asked. But before James could answer, there was a commotion near the entrance to the terrace. A man in his 50s, silver-haired and distinguished in an expensive suit, had just arrived. People turned, conversations paused. The shift in energy was immediate and palpable. Who's that? Ryan asked. James's expression went carefully neutral. Robert Mitchell. He's on the board of Hart Global Industries. And if he's here, something's wrong. Hart Global? Ryan's stomach dropped. As in the company Lena runs. Well, technically, she's just interim CEO while they search for a permanent replacement. But between you and me, she's been running circles around everyone for the past 18 months. James was still watching Mitchell make his way through the crowd. But Robert's been gunning for her position since day one. If he's at a family party, he's not here for the champagne. Ryan scanned the terrace, looking for Lena. He spotted her near the far railing, still talking with her aunt, unaware of the new arrival. Mitchell was cutting through the crowd with purpose, heading straight for her. Lena! Mitchell's voice carried across the terrace, warm and friendly in a way that made Ryan's instincts scream. Thank God I found you. We have a situation. Lena turned, and Ryan saw the color drain from her face. She recovered quickly, her expression smoothing into professional neutrality, but not before he caught the flash of fear. Robert, this is a family event. Whatever it is can wait until Monday. I'm afraid it can't. Mitchell smiled apologetically at the growing circle of onlookers. There's been an emergency board meeting called for first thing tomorrow morning. We need you there. Tomorrow is Sunday, Lena said quietly. Yes, well, the board doesn't care about weekends when there are significant concerns about leadership and direction. Mitchell's smile never wavered, but his eyes were hard. I've been trying to reach you all day. Your assistant said you were unavailable. Because I'm at my cousin's engagement party, having a personal life. Of course. And normally that would be fine. But when there are questions about judgment and priorities, Mitchell let the sentence hang. Ryan was moving before he'd really decided to, crossing the terrace until he was standing next to Lena. He didn't touch her, didn't say anything, just stood there. A silent statement that she wasn't alone. Mitchell's gaze flicked to him, dismissive. And you are? Ryan Cole, he said evenly. Lena's date. Something flickered in Mitchell's expression, surprise maybe, or calculation. I see. Well, Mr. Cole, I'm afraid I need to borrow Lena for some urgent business matters. It's 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, Ryan said. Whatever it is can wait. Can it? Mitchell turned back to Lena. The board is voting on a motion of no confidence, tomorrow morning at 9. If you're not there to defend yourself, the vote proceeds without you, and I think we both know how that will go. The terrace had gone completely silent now. Every person there was watching this confrontation unfold, and Ryan could see the calculation in their eyes. This wasn't just family drama. This was a corporate power play happening in front of 60 witnesses. Lena's face had gone completely blank, that professional mask locked firmly in place, but Ryan was close enough to see her hands trembling. Then I'll be there, she said quietly. Thank you for the courtesy of letting me know in person, Robert. It was a dismissal, delivered with perfect politeness and absolute steel. Mitchell hesitated, clearly wanting to push further, then nodded and retreated. The moment he was out of earshot, Lena turned to Ryan. I need to leave. Right now. I'm so sorry. I know we just got here, but Let's go, Ryan said simply. They made their excuses to Sarah, who looked confused and concerned but didn't push. As they walked back through the mansion, Ryan could feel the weight of stares following them. By Monday morning, everyone at that party would know that Lena Hart had been confronted by a board member at a family event, that she was in trouble, that the mechanic she'd brought as her date had been there to witness her humiliation. Lena didn't say a word until they were in the car, pulling away from the mansion. Then she pulled over on the side of the winding road and gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. I'm sorry, she said, her voice rough. I'm so sorry. I brought you into this mess and it's not fair and you didn't sign up for any of… Lena. Ryan waited until she looked at him. What's really going on? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean besides the fact that I'm about to be fired from the company my father built? The company I've been running for 18 months while the board searches for qualified leadership? The company where I've increased profits by 30% and expanded into 3 new markets, but apparently my judgment is still questionable because I'm young and I'm a woman and I had the audacity to take one evening off? The bitterness in her voice was raw and real, and Ryan saw past the polished exterior to the exhaustion underneath. The loneliness he'd recognized that first night in his garage. Hart Global Industries, he said slowly. You're not just working there, you're running it. For now. Lena's laugh was hollow. Until tomorrow morning, when they vote to replace me with someone more suitable. Someone like Robert Mitchell, who's been sabotaging my decisions and undermining my authority since the day my father died. Someone who thinks leadership is about intimidation and manipulation instead of actually caring about the people who work for you. Why did you really ask me to come tonight? Ryan asked. And I want the truth. Lena was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm tired of fighting alone. Because I wanted one evening where someone was on my side without wanting something from me. Because I saw you in that garage working late, checking on your daughter, being a good father and an honest person, and I thought, that's what strength actually looks like. Not board meetings and power plays, just someone who shows up and does what's right even when it's hard. She turned to look at him, and in the dim light of the car, Ryan saw tears tracking down her cheeks. I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you from the beginning. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I'll drive you home and pay you what I promised, and you never have to see me again. Ryan thought about Emma, waiting at home with Margaret. He thought about his garage and his simple life and how much easier it would be to just walk away from this complicated, dangerous situation. He thought about the $1,000 in his account and how he'd already mentally spent it on things Emma needed. Then he thought about the woman in front of him, brilliant and exhausted and fighting a battle she shouldn't have to fight alone. When's the board meeting? He asked. Lena blinked. What? The emergency meeting. When is it? Tomorrow morning at 9, at the company headquarters downtown. Why? Because you're not going alone, Ryan said simply. I don't know anything about corporate politics or board meetings or any of this, but I know what it's like to fight for something that matters. And I know you shouldn't have to do it by yourself. Ryan, you don't understand what you're offering. These people are ruthless. They'll eat you alive just for being associated with me. Let them try. He reached over and took her hand, grease-stained mechanic's fingers closing around her elegant ones. You asked me to come tonight because you wanted someone real, someone who wasn't playing games. Well, here I am. And I don't walk away when things get hard. Lena stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language. Like the concept of someone standing by her without calculating the cost was completely alien. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? Ryan thought about all the ways he could answer that question. He could talk about the loneliness he'd seen in her eyes that first night. He could mention the $1,000 she'd paid him, though that wasn't really the reason anymore. He could explain that he knew what it was like to be underestimated and dismissed and have to prove yourself every single day. Instead, he said simply, because it's the right thing to do, and because you asked. The story continues as Ryan and Lena face the boardroom confrontation that will decide both their futures. The drive back to Ryan's apartment was quiet, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of strangers. It was the weighted quiet of two people who'd just made a decision that would change everything. Lena's hands were steady on the wheel now, her tears dried, replaced by something harder and more determined. Ryan watched the city lights blur past his window and wondered what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. When they pulled up outside his building, Lena killed the engine but didn't move to leave. I need to prepare for tomorrow, she said quietly. I have documents to review, strategies to finalize. I should probably spend the night at my office going through everything Mitchell might throw at me. Or, Ryan said, you could come inside, have some coffee that's probably terrible compared to what you're used to, and tell me what I need to know so I don't make things worse tomorrow. Lena looked at him like he'd just suggested something radical. You want me to come to your apartment? I want you to take a breath and remember that you're a person, not just a CEO, Ryan said. And I want to understand what we're walking into tomorrow, because if I'm going to stand next to you in that boardroom, I should at least know what the fight's about. She hesitated, and Ryan could see the war happening behind her eyes. The part of her that had been taught to handle everything alone, to never show weakness, to keep her personal and professional lives in completely separate boxes, and the part that was just exhausted and scared and desperately wanted someone to share the weight. Okay, she said finally. But just for a little while. I really do need to prepare. Margaret was reading in the living room when they entered, and her eyebrows rose slightly at the sight of Lena in her elegant dress, but she simply gathered her things with professional discretion. Emma's been asleep since 8:30, she reported. No problems at all. She's a lovely child. After Margaret left, Ryan led Lena to the small kitchen table that doubled as his workspace, his dining area, and Emma's homework station. He poured 2 mugs of coffee from the pot he'd made that morning, reheated in the microwave because he couldn't afford to waste it. Lena accepted hers without comment, wrapping her hands around the chipped ceramic like it was a lifeline. My father started Hart Global Industries 40 years ago, she began, her voice soft so as not to wake Emma in the next room. He built it from nothing into one of the largest manufacturing and distribution companies in the country. 17,000 employees across 6 states, annual revenue in the billions. And he did it by actually giving a damn about the people who worked for him. Ryan sipped his coffee and listened. When he died 18 months ago, he left the company to me. Not to the board. Not to be sold to the highest bidder. To me. Lena's jaw tightened. The board wasn't happy. I was 27 years old. I had an MBA from Stanford and 5 years of experience working my way up through the company, but to them I was just a kid who got the job because of her last name. So they made you interim CEO, Ryan said, to give themselves time to find someone better. Exactly. They expected me to fail, to be overwhelmed, to make mistakes they could point to as proof that I wasn't ready. She met his eyes. But I didn't fail. I restructured our supply chain and cut costs by 15% without laying off a single worker. I negotiated new contracts that expanded our market share. I implemented safety protocols that reduced workplace injuries by 40%. I did everything right, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough when people have already decided you don't belong. The bitterness in Lena's voice was sharp. Robert Mitchell has been waiting for me to stumble since day one. He was my father's VP of operations, and he expected to take over when Dad died. Instead, he got passed over for the boss's daughter. He spent 18 months undermining every decision I make, spreading rumors about my competence, turning board members against me. And now he's making his move, Ryan said, a motion of no confidence. If it passes, I'm out. The board appoints an interim CEO, probably Mitchell, and I'm reduced to a minority shareholder with no operational control. Lena's hands tightened around her mug. He's been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. Why now? What changed? Lena was quiet for a moment. 3 weeks ago, I made a decision that Mitchell opposed. We had a factory in Ohio that was struggling, outdated equipment, aging workforce, production costs that made it barely profitable. Mitchell wanted to close it, sell the property, and relocate production to a cheaper facility in Mexico. It would have saved the company $12 million a year. But it would have put people out of work, Ryan said, understanding. 340 jobs, Lena confirmed. In a town where the factory was the largest employer. I ran the numbers every possible way, and I found an alternative. We could modernize the facility, retrain the workforce, and partner with local technical colleges to create a pipeline of skilled workers. It would cost more up front, but in the long run, it would make us more competitive and keep those jobs in the community. Mitchell didn't like that. He called it sentimental and fiscally irresponsible. He told the board I was letting emotion cloud my judgment, that I was more concerned with being liked than with being profitable. Lena's voice dropped. And some of them believed him, enough that when he called for this vote, he knew he had the numbers. Ryan studied her face in the dim kitchen light. She looked exhausted, but there was steel underneath. Do you regret it? The decision about the factory? Not for a second, Lena said immediately. Those are real people with real families. They're not just line items on a spreadsheet. And the thing is, my solution will work. It's already working. Production efficiency is up, worker satisfaction is higher, and we're on track to recoup the modernization costs within 3 years. But Mitchell doesn't care about that. He cares about proving I was wrong. So, tomorrow, in that boardroom, what happens? Mitchell will present his case for why I'm unfit to lead. He'll have documentation, financial projections, probably testimonials from other executives about my supposed failures. Then I get a chance to defend myself. Then the board votes. She met Ryan's eyes. And unless I can change some minds in the next 12 hours, I lose. What do you need to win? 7 votes out of 12. I have 3 for sure. Board members who are loyal to my father and believe in what I'm doing. Mitchell has at least 5, maybe 6. The rest are undecided or playing both sides. Lena rubbed her temples. I need to convince at least 4 people who are currently against me or on the fence that I'm worth keeping, that my vision for the company is the right one. Ryan poured them both more coffee, his mind working through the problem the way he'd work through a complicated engine repair. Mitchell's whole argument is that you're emotional and irresponsible, right? That you make decisions based on sentiment instead of business sense? That's the core of it, yes. So you prove him wrong. You show up tomorrow with every number, every projection, every piece of evidence that your decisions are not only morally right, but financially sound. You make it impossible for them to dismiss you as some naive kid playing CEO. I have all of that, Lena said. Presentations, reports, third-party analysis. I've been preparing for this fight for months. But you're still scared. She looked at him, and for the first time that evening, she smiled, small and sad, but genuine. Terrified. Because facts and numbers only matter if people are willing to listen to them, and I'm not sure they are. Then make them listen, Ryan said. You're not asking for their approval. You're not asking for permission. You're telling them how it's going to be. You're the CEO. You're the one your father trusted with his life's work. You walk into that room like you own it, because you do. Lena stared at him. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You know you're right. You know your decisions are sound. So stop defending yourself and start leading. Make them remember why your father chose you in the first place. They sat in silence for a while, and Ryan could see Lena processing, thinking through angles and strategies. When she finally spoke again, her voice was different, stronger. I'm going to need documentation. Financial statements, the Ohio factory modernization plan, worker satisfaction surveys, production reports. She was already pulling out her phone. I can have my assistant send everything to my apartment, and I'll spend the night reviewing it all. Or, Ryan said, you could spend the night getting some sleep so you're sharp tomorrow, and trust that you already know this material better than anyone in that room. I can't just wing it, Ryan. I'm not saying wing it. I'm saying you've been living this for 18 months. You know the numbers. You know the strategy. What you need tomorrow isn't more preparation. It's rest and confidence. He stood up. Come on, I'll drive you home. You don't have a car here, Lena pointed out. I drove. Then you'll drive and I'll keep you company. Make sure you actually go to sleep instead of obsessing over spreadsheets until 4 in the morning. Lena laughed, and it was the first time that night she'd sounded genuinely amused. You barely know me and you're already managing my sleep schedule? Someone has to, Ryan said, and it's clear you won't do it yourself. They were almost to the door when a small voice came from the hallway. Daddy? Ryan turned to see Emma standing in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing up? I heard voices. Emma's gaze shifted to Lena, curious but not afraid. Who's that? This is my friend Lena, Ryan said, kneeling down to Emma's level. We were just talking. I'm going to drive her home real quick, but I'll be back soon, okay? Is she the reason you got all dressed up? Emma asked with the blunt honesty of 7-year-olds. Lena knelt down too, bringing herself to Emma's eye level. I am. I asked your dad to come to a party with me tonight. I hope that's okay. Emma studied Lena with the serious consideration kids give to important decisions. Did you have fun? You know what? I actually did, Lena said, and Ryan could hear the surprise in her voice. Your dad is a really good person to have around when things get complicated. He's the best, Emma agreed matter-of-factly. He fixes everything. I'm learning that, Lena said softly. Ryan got Emma back to bed, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. When he returned to the living room, Lena was looking at the photos on his wall, mostly of Emma at various ages, a few of his mother before she'd passed, one of him and Emma at the beach last summer. She's beautiful, Lena said. She has your eyes. She has her mother's smile, Ryan said. Not that she remembers it. Her mom left when Emma was 4. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off without someone who didn't want to be here. Ryan grabbed his jacket. Come on, let's get you home before you fall asleep on your feet. Lena's apartment was in one of the city's most exclusive buildings, all glass and steel and doormen in uniform. The penthouse, naturally. Ryan rode the elevator up with her, and when the doors opened directly into her living space, he had to suppress his reaction. The place was gorgeous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that looked like it came from a magazine, art on the walls that might have been original pieces worth more than his entire life. But it was also sterile, clean and beautiful and completely impersonal, like a hotel suite rather than a home. This is where you live? Ryan asked. Technically. Lena dropped her purse on a glass table. I'm not here much. Mostly I sleep at the office. That's not healthy, says the man who works 12-hour days and picks up his daughter late from after-school care. Fair point, Ryan conceded. But at least my space feels lived in. This looks like a showroom. Lena glanced around as if seeing the place through his eyes. I never really thought about it. It's just where I keep my things. Ryan walked to the windows, looking out at the city spread below them. Somewhere down there was his neighborhood, his garage, his real life. Up here, everything felt disconnected and distant. Do you like it? Living like this? I don't know, Lena admitted. I've never really let myself think about what I like. There's always been the next goal, the next achievement, the next thing I had to prove. Maybe that's something to work on after tomorrow. After tomorrow, I might not have a job. Then you'll figure out what comes next. But either way, you'll still be you. Still be the person who cared enough about 300 factory workers to fight for them. Still be the woman who walked into a mechanic's garage because she wanted something real. Ryan turned to face her. The board can vote on whether you're CEO. They can't vote on who you are. Lena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything seem manageable. Make me feel like maybe I'm not completely alone in this. Because you're not, Ryan said simply. I'll be there tomorrow. I won't understand half of what's being said, and I'll probably be the most underdressed person in the building, but I'll be there. And whatever happens, we'll figure it out. She crossed the distance between them and hugged him. Not romantic, not desperate, just human connection. Ryan hugged her back, this brilliant woman who'd somehow become important to him in the span of a few days, and felt her trembling slightly against him. "Thank you," she whispered, "for all of this, for not running away when things got complicated." "I told you," Ryan said, "I don't run." He made her promise to get at least 6 hours of sleep, extracted a commitment that she'd eat breakfast, and finally headed back down to call a rideshare home. It was after midnight by the time he got back to his apartment, and he had to be at Hart Global Industries at 8:30 to meet Lena before the board meeting. Emma was still asleep, peaceful, and unaware that her father had just promised to walk into a corporate war zone. Ryan checked on her one more time, then collapsed onto his own bed without bothering to fully undress. His phone buzzed with a text. "Thank you for tonight, for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." Ryan smiled and typed back, "You too. And stop worrying. You've got this." He set his alarm for 6, giving himself time to shower, change, and arrange for Emma to spend Sunday with his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to watch her for the day. Then he lay in the dark, staring at his ceiling, and thought about corporate boardrooms and manufacturing empires, and the strange path that had led him here. Sunday morning arrived too fast. Ryan dropped Emma at Mrs. Chen's apartment with promises that he'd be back by dinner, then drove his ancient truck across town to the gleaming high-rise that housed Hart Global Industries. The building was mostly empty on a Sunday, but there were enough cars in the executive parking area to make it clear this meeting was happening. He parked in visitor parking, feeling intensely aware of how out of place his truck looked among the Teslas and BMWs. The security guard in the lobby looked him up and down with open skepticism. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm here for the board meeting. Ryan Cole. I'm with Ms. Hart." The guard checked his list, clearly surprised to find Ryan's name there. "9th floor. Elevators are to your left." The elevator ride felt interminable. Ryan had changed into his suit again, the same one from last night, and he'd made sure Emma helped him pick a decent tie. But standing in that polished elevator, watching the floors tick by, he felt every bit the imposter. The 9th floor opened onto an elegant reception area with Hart Global's logo mounted on the wall in brushed steel. Lena was already there, standing by the windows in a charcoal gray suit that made her look every inch the CEO. She turned when she heard the elevator, and relief flooded her face. "You came," she said. "I said I would." Ryan crossed to her. "How are you holding up?" "Ask me again in 2 hours." She glanced at her watch. "The board members are already arriving. Mitchell's been here since 7, probably making sure everyone knows his version of events before I even enter the room." "Let him," Ryan said. "You know the truth. That's what matters." A door at the end of the hallway opened, and a woman in her 60s emerged, elegant and sharp-eyed. She saw Lena, and her expression softened slightly. "Lena, I was hoping you'd be here early. We should talk before this circus begins." "Margaret," Lena straightened. "I'd like you to meet Ryan Cole. Ryan, Margaret Chen, board member and former CFO under my father." Margaret extended her hand, and her grip was firm. "Mr. Cole, I've heard interesting things about you in the last 12 hours. "I can imagine," Ryan said carefully. "Don't worry, mostly that you're a mechanic who somehow convinced Lena to take an evening off, which I didn't think was possible." Margaret's smile was genuine. "Walk with me, both of you. We have about 10 minutes before this meeting starts, and there are some things you need to know." They followed her down the hallway, past offices that were dark and empty on a Sunday morning. Margaret spoke quickly and quietly. "Mitchell has 6 votes locked. I have 3, including my own. That leaves 3 undecided. Jonathan Park is nervous about the Ohio factory decision, but respects the modernization plan. Susan Rodriguez is concerned about leadership stability, but hasn't committed either way. And David Okonkwo is a wild card. He's new to the board and hasn't taken a strong position on anything yet. So I need to convince at least 4 of the 6 who are currently against me, or all 3 of the undecided," Lena said. "Yes, and it's not going to be easy. Mitchell's been working them hard. But you have something he doesn't." Margaret paused at the door to the boardroom. "You have your father's vision and his integrity. Don't let them make you forget that." The boardroom was exactly what Ryan expected. Long, polished table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the city. 11 people were already seated, and they all looked up when Lena entered. Ryan caught the calculations happening in real time as they registered his presence. Robert Mitchell sat at the far end of the table, silver-haired and confident. He smiled when he saw Lena. "So glad you could make it, Lena. We were worried you might not take this seriously." "I take everything about this company seriously, Robert. You know that." Lena took the seat at the head of the table, her father's chair, Ryan realized, and gestured for Ryan to sit beside her. "I believe you all know Ryan Cole. He's here as my guest." "With all due respect," a thin man in expensive glasses said, "this is a closed board meeting. We can't have outside observers." "Mr. Cole isn't here as an observer," Lena said smoothly. "He's here as a reminder of why this company exists. But if the board objects, he can wait outside." Ryan started to stand, but Margaret spoke up. "I don't object. Let him stay. We could use some perspective from outside our corporate bubble." A few others murmured agreement, though Mitchell's expression had tightened. He recovered quickly. "Very well. Let's begin. As you all know, I've called this emergency session to address serious concerns about current leadership and direction. Over the past 18 months, we've seen decisions that prioritize sentiment over sound business practice. The Ohio factory situation is just the most recent example. He pulled up a presentation on the screen at the end of the room. Numbers and charts appeared, projections showing losses, comparison analyses, shareholder value declining. It looked damning. By refusing to close the Ohio facility and relocate production to more cost-effective locations, current leadership has cost this company an estimated $43 million over the next 5 years. That's $43 million that could have gone to shareholders, to expansion, to competitive advantages in the market. Instead, it's being poured into a facility that will never be as profitable as the alternatives. Mitchell spoke for 20 minutes, building his case methodically. He was good, Ryan had to admit. Persuasive and prepared, painting Lena as well-meaning but ultimately unsuited for the harsh realities of corporate leadership. When he finished, Lena stood. She didn't have a presentation. She didn't pull up charts. She just stood there in her father's place and began to speak. "Robert is right about one thing. I did make a decision about the Ohio factory that cost us money up front. $40 million over 5 years to modernize equipment and retrain workers instead of closing the facility and chasing cheaper labor costs. That number is accurate." She paused. "What Robert didn't mention is what we're getting for that investment." She pulled out her phone and connected it to the screen. A different set of numbers appeared. Since the modernization began 4 months ago, production efficiency at the Ohio facility has increased by 22%. Worker satisfaction is up 40%, which translates directly to lower turnover and reduced training costs. We've partnered with 3 technical colleges to create a pipeline of skilled workers, which means we're not just maintaining our workforce, we're building the next generation of it. The board members were leaning forward now, paying attention. Lena continued, her voice gaining strength. "More importantly, we've become the preferred employer in that region. We're attracting talent that used to go to competitors. We're building brand loyalty, not just with our customers, but with our workers and their communities. That has value that doesn't show up on a 5-year projection spreadsheet." "Sentimental value," Mitchell interjected. "Not shareholder value." "It's both," Lena shot back. "Because those workers, they're innovating. They're suggesting improvements to our processes because they're invested in the company's success. They're not just showing up for a paycheck, they're building something they believe in. And that kind of engagement is worth far more than the money we might have saved by chasing the cheapest possible labor." She advanced to the next slide. "Here's what Robert's analysis doesn't include. The cost of reputational damage if we'd closed that factory. The impact on our other facilities when workers see that Hart Global will discard them the moment it's financially convenient. The loss of institutional knowledge when you lay off experienced workers who know our systems inside and out. When you factor all of that in, the Ohio decision isn't just morally right, it's the smartest business move we could have made." The room was completely silent. Even Mitchell had stopped smiling. Lena looked at each board member in turn. "My father built this company on the principle that our workers are our greatest asset, not our machinery, not our patents, not our market share, our people. And yes, that means sometimes we make decisions that cost more in the short term because they're right for the long term." But that's what leadership is. Having the courage to invest in people even when the spreadsheet says there's a cheaper alternative. She sat down, and Ryan could see her hand shaking slightly under the table. He reached over and took one, squeezing gently. She squeezed back. Margaret spoke first. I move that we table the motion of no confidence and allow Lena to continue as CEO with a formal review in 6 months. I second, said another board member, a man in his 70s whom Ryan didn't recognize. We still need to vote on the original motion, Mitchell said tightly. That's procedure. Then let's vote, Margaret said. All in favor of removing Lena Hart as CEO? 4 hands went up, Mitchell's and 3 others, not enough. Opposed? 5 hands rose, Margaret's, 3 others, and then, after a long moment, a younger woman Ryan assumed was Susan Rodriguez. 3 abstentions, including the new member David Okonkwo, who was watching Lena with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. The motion fails, Margaret announced. Lena Hart remains CEO of Hart Global Industries. The relief in the room was palpable, but Lena didn't celebrate. She just nodded once, professional and composed. Thank you for your confidence. I won't waste it. Mitchell stood abruptly, gathering his materials. This isn't over, Lena. You won today, but leadership requires more than passionate speeches about principles. It requires results. Then I'll deliver results, Lena said calmly. Just like I have been for the past 18 months. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, Robert. The board members filed out slowly, some stopping to congratulate Lena, others leaving without comment. When the room was finally empty except for Ryan, Lena, and Margaret, Lena finally let herself exhale. You did it, Margaret said warmly. Your father would have been proud. I just told them the truth, Lena said. Whether they believe it long-term remains to be seen. They'll believe it when you prove it, which you will. Margaret glanced at Ryan. And thank you, Mr. Cole, for being here. I suspect your presence reminded certain people that there's a world outside these boardrooms, a world where decisions actually matter to real people. After Margaret left, Lena turned to Ryan. She looked exhausted but triumphant, and there was something lighter in her expression than he'd seen before. I can't believe that actually worked, she said. I can, Ryan said. You were brilliant in there, and you were right, about all of it. I still have Mitchell gunning for me, and 3 abstentions that could go either way next time. Then you'll deal with it when next time comes. But right now you won. That's worth something. Lena laughed, and it was genuine and relieved. It's worth everything. I get to keep doing the work I believe in. I get to keep my father's legacy alive. I get to prove that you can run a business with integrity and still succeed. She hugged him suddenly, fierce and grateful, and Ryan hugged her back. When she pulled away, there were tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. What now? Ryan asked. Now I go back to my office and start preparing for the next battle. Mitchell wasn't bluffing. He'll be looking for any excuse to challenge me again. She paused. But maybe first, I take the rest of the day off. Maybe I do something that has nothing to do with spreadsheets or profit margins. Maybe I remember what it feels like to just be a person for a few hours. That sounds like a good plan, Ryan said. They walked to the elevator together, and as they descended from the 9th floor, Lena said quietly, I owe you an apology. For what? For not being completely honest from the beginning, for bringing you into this mess without full disclosure. You told me what I needed to know when I needed to know it, Ryan said. And yeah, maybe I would have made a different decision if I'd known you were a billionaire CEO instead of just some woman who needed a date to a party. But I'm glad I didn't know. Because it meant I saw you as just Lena, and I think that's what you needed. It's exactly what I needed, she admitted. They reached the lobby, and Ryan walked with her to the parking garage. Her Mercedes was parked in a spot marked Reserved CEO, and Ryan had to smile at the absurdity of the past 24 hours. He'd gone from fixing transmissions to attending corporate board meetings, and somehow it all felt inevitable. What are you doing for the rest of the day? Lena asked as she unlocked her car. Picking up Emma, taking her to the park probably. Maybe getting ice cream if she's been good for Mrs. Chen. He shrugged. Nothing exciting. That sounds perfect, Lena said wistfully. Ryan studied her for a moment, this woman who owned half the city but looked longingly at the prospect of a Sunday afternoon at the park. "You could come with us," he said. "If you want. It's not fancy, but Emma would probably enjoy meeting you properly, and you could use a few hours of just being normal." Lena's eyes widened. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" "I wouldn't have offered if I minded. Fair warning, though, Emma asks about 1,000,000 questions, and she will absolutely make you push her on the swings until your arms fall off." "I think I can handle that," Lena said, and her smile was brighter than Ryan had ever seen it. They took Ryan's truck because Lena insisted she wanted the full authentic experience, though she had to hide her smile when the passenger door creaked loudly and the seatbelt buckle took 3 tries to click into place. Ryan caught her expression and shook his head. "Not all of us can afford German engineering," he said, but there was humor in his voice. "I wasn't judging," Lena protested. "I was just thinking that this truck has character. The Mercedes is just a car. This feels like it has stories." "Oh, it has stories," Ryan agreed, turning the key and coaxing the engine to life. "Most of them involve me under the hood at 2 in the morning trying to keep it running, but it's paid for and it gets us where we need to go, so I'm not complaining." The drive to Mrs. Chen's apartment took them back through the neighborhoods Ryan knew, away from the glass towers and executive parking spots, and into the world where people worked with their hands and counted pennies. Lena watched out the window with genuine interest, not the tourist curiosity of someone slumming it, but the attention of someone actually seeing things. Mrs. Chen lived on the 3rd floor of a walk-up that had seen better days but was clean and well-maintained. She answered the door with Emma practically vibrating with energy beside her. "Daddy!" Emma launched herself at Ryan, who caught her easily and swung her around. "Mrs. Chen made dumplings and taught me how to fold them, and I only broke like 3 of them." "Only 3? That's pretty good for your first time." Ryan set her down and gestured to Lena. "Emma, you remember Lena from last night?" Emma turned her attention to Lena with the frank assessment of a child. "You're really pretty," she announced. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" "Emma," Ryan said, mortified, but Lena laughed. "I'm your dad's friend," Lena said, crouching down to Emma's eye level again. "Is that okay?" "I guess so," Emma said with the diplomatic tone of someone reserving judgment. "Do you like parks?" "I haven't been to one in a long time, but I used to love them when I was your age." "We're going to Riverside Park," Emma informed her. "It has the best swings in the whole city. Daddy says so." Mrs. Chen watched this exchange with knowing eyes, and when Ryan thanked her and tried to pay for her time, she waved him off. "Save your money. Emma was a pleasure, as always. And Ryan?" She glanced meaningfully at Lena. "It's good to see you with someone who makes you smile like that." Ryan felt heat creep up his neck, but he just nodded and ushered Emma and Lena toward the stairs before Mrs. Chen could say anything else embarrassing. The park was 15 minutes away, a stretch of green along the river with playground equipment that had been updated sometime in the last decade, and walking paths where joggers and dog walkers made their endless loops. It was nearly noon on a Sunday, and the place was full of families, parents pushing strollers, kids shrieking on the jungle gym, teenagers throwing frisbees near the water. Emma made a beeline for the swings the moment they arrived, and Lena followed without hesitation, her expensive suit looking wildly out of place among the yoga pants and t-shirts of the other parents. She didn't seem to notice or care. She just positioned herself behind Emma's swing and started pushing, listening intently as Emma chattered about school and her best friend Mia and the book she was reading about dragons. Ryan hung back for a moment, watching them. There was something surreal about seeing Lena Hart, CEO of a billion-dollar company, pushing his daughter on a swing set in a public park. But there was also something right about it, like pieces clicking into place that he hadn't realized were misaligned. "Higher!" Emma demanded, and Lena pushed harder, laughing when Emma squealed with delight. After the swings came the slide, then the monkey bars, where Emma showed off her ability to cross all the way across without falling. Lena cheered like Emma had just won an Olympic medal, and Ryan saw his daughter absolutely glow under the attention. They found a bench near the playground where they could watch Emma tackle the climbing wall. Ryan had picked up sandwiches from the bodega on the corner, nothing fancy, just turkey and cheese on bread that was fresh enough. Lena accepted hers without comment and bit in like she hadn't eaten all day. "When was the last time you had a meal that didn't come from a restaurant or a catered business lunch?" Ryan asked. Lena thought about it. I honestly can't remember. Months, maybe? I eat at my desk most of the time, or in meetings, or at events where the food is more about presentation than actually being food. That's depressing. It's efficient, Lena countered, but without much conviction. It's lonely, Ryan said quietly. Eating alone at your desk every night, working until you can't see straight, going home to that sterile apartment where everything's perfect and nothing's lived in. That's not efficiency. That's just running away from having a life. Lena was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma hang upside down from a bar and wave at them. You're not wrong, she admitted finally. I've spent so long trying to prove I deserve my position, trying to be perfect at every aspect of the job, that I forgot there's supposed to be more than just work. Your dad, Ryan said. Did he work like that? No. He worked hard, don't get me wrong, but he always made time for family dinners, always took Sundays off unless there was a genuine emergency. He used to say that if you couldn't run a business and still have a life, you were doing something wrong. Lena's smile was sad. I thought I had to be different, work twice as hard, sacrifice twice as much, prove that I was serious about the job, but all I've done is make myself miserable. So stop, Ryan said simply. It's not that easy. I have responsibilities, people depending on me, and you'll serve them better if you're not burned out and exhausted all the time. You proved today that you can lead this company. Now prove you can have a life while doing it. Emma ran over, breathless and grinning. Daddy, can we get ice cream? Please. Lena said she hasn't had ice cream from a truck in forever, and I told her about the one that comes here and… Slow down, sweetheart, Ryan laughed. Yes, we can get ice cream, if the truck is here. The truck was there, parked near the park entrance with a small line of kids and parents. Emma bounced on her toes while they waited, debating between chocolate and strawberry with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Lena ordered vanilla, and Ryan got butter pecan because it reminded him of his mother. They found a spot by the river, sitting on the grass while Emma attempted to eat her ice cream faster than it could melt. Lena had kicked off her heels and was sitting cross-legged in her suit pants, completely unconcerned about grass stains, licking her vanilla cone with evident pleasure. This is exactly how I remember it, she said. How did ice cream from a truck always taste better than anything from a fancy restaurant? Because you're eating it outside on a nice day with people you like, Emma said matter-of-factly. That's what makes food good. Daddy says so. Your daddy is a smart man, Lena agreed. They spent another hour at the park, walking along the river while Emma collected interesting rocks and described in elaborate detail why each one was special. Lena listened to every word like Emma was presenting a doctoral thesis, asking questions and expressing appropriate amazement at particularly shiny specimens. Ryan watched them interact and felt something shift in his chest. He'd been alone with Emma for 3 years, shouldering every responsibility, making every decision, being both mother and father because that's what the situation required. He'd gotten used to it, built his life around that reality. But seeing Emma light up with Lena's attention, seeing how naturally they connected, made him realize how much his daughter had been missing. Not a mother specifically, but another adult who genuinely cared about her, someone to share the joy and the burden with. Daddy, can Lena come to dinner? Emma asked as they walked back toward the truck. Please? We could make spaghetti. That's my favorite. Ryan glanced at Lena, ready to give her an out, but she was already nodding. I would love that, if your dad doesn't mind cooking for one more. I think we can manage, Ryan said. Fair warning, though, I'm not a chef. It's going to be basic spaghetti with sauce from a jar, but… That sounds perfect, Lena said, and she meant it. Back at the apartment, Emma appointed herself Lena's guide, showing her every important feature including her room with its collection of stuffed animals and library books, the art she'd done in school that covered half the refrigerator, and the balcony that overlooked the alley where she liked to watch the neighborhood cats. Ryan started boiling water for pasta and browning ground beef for the sauce, moving through the familiar motions of feeding his daughter while half listening to Emma's ongoing narration in the other room. Lena asked questions and laughed at Emma's stories, and the sound of it filled the small apartment with warmth. When dinner was ready, they crowded around the kitchen table that was really too small for 3 people. Emma insisted on sitting between them, and Ryan served spaghetti onto mismatched plates while Lena poured juice from the refrigerator. This is the best dinner I've had in months, Lena declared after her first bite. It's just spaghetti, Ryan said. It's spaghetti made by someone who cares about the people eating it. That makes it better than any five-star restaurant. Lena twirled another forkful. And your dad's a good cook, Emma. The best, Emma agreed loyally. Then, with the sudden topic changes children specialized in, she asked, Lena, do you have kids? No, sweetheart, I don't. Why not? Emma, Ryan warned gently, but Lena shook her head. It's okay. That's a fair question. She thought for a moment. I guess I've been so focused on my work that I never made time for a family. I always thought there would be time later, but later keeps not arriving. You could have kids now, Emma said with the simple logic of a 7-year-old. You're not that old. Lena laughed. Thank you for that assessment, but having children requires more than just deciding to do it. You need the right partner, the right circumstances, the right time in your life. My mom left because she didn't want to be a mom anymore, Emma said matter-of-factly, and Ryan's heart clenched. Daddy says some people aren't ready for kids, and that's okay. But I think if you wanted to be a mom, you'd be a really good one. Lena's eyes were suspiciously bright. That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me, Emma. Thank you. After dinner, Emma convinced Lena to read her a bedtime story, and they disappeared into Emma's room with a well-worn copy of a book about a girl who tamed dragons. Ryan cleaned up the kitchen, listening to Lena's voice through the wall, steady and warm as she read. When Lena emerged 20 minutes later, she was smiling but looked emotional. She fell asleep halfway through chapter 3, she reported. I stayed until I was sure she was really out. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Lena sat on the couch, tucking her feet under her. She'd long since abandoned any pretense of formality, her hair coming loose from its style, her suit jacket draped over a chair. Thank you for today, for including me in this. I needed it more than I realized. Ryan sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. You're welcome anytime. Emma clearly adores you, and honestly, it's nice having another adult around who isn't just the babysitter or a teacher. Can I ask you something? Lena turned to face him. How do you do it? Raise a daughter alone, run a business, manage everything without falling apart? Who says I don't fall apart? Ryan smiled ruefully. I lose my temper sometimes. I mess up dinner. I forget to sign permission slips and have to rush them to school in the morning. I'm late picking Emma up more often than I should be. I'm not some superhero. I'm just doing the best I can and hoping it's enough. But you show up every day. For her. That matters. So do you. For your employees, for your company, for your father's legacy. You showed up today when you could have walked away. That matters too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of quiet that only comes when two people are genuinely comfortable with each other. Finally, Lena said, I should probably go. Let you get some rest. Tomorrow's Monday, and I have about 1,000 things to deal with after today's meeting. Lena, Ryan said as she stood to leave. What happens now with us, I mean? You got through the board meeting. You don't need a mechanic as moral support anymore. So where does that leave things? Lena looked at him for a long moment. I don't know, she admitted. I know we come from completely different worlds. I know that practically speaking, this, whatever this is, doesn't make sense. But I also know that I've been happier in the last 3 days than I've been in years. That I feel more like myself with you and Emma than I do in any boardroom or at any executive function. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose it either, Ryan said. But I need you to be honest with me about what you're looking for. Because I have a daughter to think about. I can't bring someone into her life who's going to disappear when things get complicated or when the novelty of slumming it wears off. This isn't slumming it, Lena said fiercely. And I wouldn't do that to Emma, or to you. She took a breath. I don't have all the answers. I don't know how we make this work when our lives are so different, but I know I want to try. If you're willing. Ryan stood and crossed to her. I'm willing, but we do this slow. We figure it out as we go, and we're honest with each other, even when it's hard. Deal? Deal. Lena extended her hand like they were sealing a business contract, and Ryan took it, pulling her into a hug instead. She melted into it, resting her head against his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. The real me, not the CEO or the billionaire or any of that. Just me. That's all I've ever seen, Ryan said. He walked her down to her car, and they stood in the parking lot under the streetlights while she reluctantly put her heels back on and tried to restore some semblance of professional appearance. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said, "after I deal with the inevitable fallout from today. Mitchell's going to make the next few weeks hell, but I can handle it." "I know you can. But if you need to talk or vent or just remember that there's a world outside those boardrooms, you know where to find me." Lena kissed his cheek, brief and sweet, then got in her car. Ryan watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the city traffic, and felt the weight of what they'd just committed to. Two people from completely different worlds, trying to build something real in the space between them. The next few weeks were exactly as complicated as Ryan expected. Lena was buried in work, managing the fallout from the board meeting and dealing with Mitchell's continued attempts to undermine her authority. She called when she could, usually late at night after Emma was asleep, and they talked about everything and nothing. Sometimes she sounded exhausted. Sometimes she sounded frustrated. But she always sounded happy to hear his voice. They managed to see each other on Sundays, which became their day. Lena would show up at the apartment in jeans and a t-shirt, leaving her CEO persona somewhere in the luxury car she increasingly left at home in favor of riding the bus or subway to Ryan's neighborhood. They went to the park, to the library, to the cheap Chinese restaurant Emma loved. Lena attended one of Emma's school events, sitting in the back and clapping enthusiastically when Emma presented her science project on volcanoes. But the differences in their worlds kept surfacing in ways both large and small. When Ryan's truck finally died completely and he mentioned needing to find a used replacement, Lena immediately offered to buy him a new one, not understanding why he looked hurt. When she casually suggested a weekend trip to her family's vacation home in the Hamptons, she seemed genuinely confused when Ryan explained that he couldn't just take off work for long weekends and Mrs. Chen wasn't available for overnight care. They were learning each other, navigating the complicated reality of trying to bridge two completely different lives. And most of the time, it worked. But there were moments when the gulf between them felt impossibly wide. 5 weeks after the board meeting, Lena showed up at the garage on a Wednesday afternoon. Ryan was under a Honda Civic replacing a timing belt when he heard her heels on the concrete floor. "You know, most people call before dropping by," he said, sliding out from under the car and wiping his hands on a rag. "I know. I'm sorry. I needed to see you." Lena looked agitated, pacing in her business suit and heels, completely out of place among the tools and motor oil. "Mitchell's forcing another vote in 2 weeks. He's got new ammunition this time." Ryan stood, concerned. "What kind of ammunition?" "The Ohio factory modernization is behind schedule. Not by much, just a few weeks, but enough that he can argue I overpromised and underdelivered. And there's been some employee complaints about the pace of change. People who don't like the new systems we're implementing. Mitchell's framing it as proof that my people-first approach doesn't actually work." "Is he right? Is the project failing?" "No, it's actually going better than projected in most areas. The delays are because we're being thorough, making sure we do it right instead of fast. And the complaints are from a handful of people who resist any change. But Mitchell doesn't care about context. He just cares about optics." Lena stopped pacing and looked at Ryan. "I'm going to win this vote. I know I am. But it's going to be harder this time, and I'm going to have to fight dirty, get ahead of his narrative, undermine his credibility, play politics." "So do it," Ryan said. "You know how to play that game." "I do, but I hate it. I hate that this is what corporate leadership has become. I hate that I can't just do good work and have that speak for itself. I hate that I have to spend my time defending myself instead of actually running the company." She looked at him helplessly. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it, if I should just step down, take my shareholder payout, and walk away from all of it." Ryan set down his tools and faced her fully. "Is that what you want? To walk away?" "I don't know what I want anymore," Lena admitted. 3 months ago, the company was everything. It was my father's legacy and my entire identity and the only thing that mattered. But now I have you and Emma and Sunday afternoons that don't involve spreadsheets. And I'm starting to wonder if I've been fighting for the wrong thing all along." "You're tired," Ryan said gently, "and stressed. But you're not a quitter, Lena. You don't walk away from fights just because they're hard. What if I'm fighting the wrong fight? What if the real victory is choosing a different kind of life? Ryan pulled her into his arms, and she came willingly, resting her head against his chest. He could feel her trembling slightly, exhausted and overwhelmed. You don't have to decide anything today. Fight this next battle. Win or lose, then figure out what you really want. But don't make major life decisions when you're running on empty. When did you get so wise? Lena asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. Sometime between the second diaper explosion and the third time I had to explain why we couldn't afford the toy Emma wanted. Parenting teaches you perspective real fast. Lena pulled back and looked up at him. Come with me, she said suddenly. To the next board meeting, like you did last time. I know it's a lot to ask, but I fight better when you're there. You remind me why I'm doing this. Of course I'll come, Ryan said. You don't even have to ask. I'm asking anyway, because this isn't just about showing up. It's about you choosing to be part of this mess, part of my life. Even when it's complicated and stressful and involves corporate politics you shouldn't have to care about. I'm already part of your life, Ryan said. The complicated parts don't scare me. They're just part of who you are. They stood there in the garage, holding each other among the tools and car parts, and Ryan felt the weight of what they were building together. It wasn't simple, it wasn't easy, but it was real. I should let you get back to work, Lena said eventually. I've taken up enough of your afternoon. You can take up my afternoon anytime, Ryan said. That's what I'm here for. After she left, Ryan tried to focus on the timing belt replacement, but his mind kept wandering. He'd meant what he said about not being scared of the complicated parts of Lena's life, but he was starting to wonder if the real question wasn't whether he could handle her world, but whether there was actually room for him in it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Lena sent him documents and reports trying to explain the intricacies of the situation, but most of it went over his head. He wasn't a businessman. He fixed cars. He knew torque specs and compression ratios, not profit margins and shareholder value. But he showed up anyway. On the morning of the second board meeting, he put on the same suit he'd worn to the last one, dropped Emma at school with a promise to pick her up on time, and drove to Hart Global Industries. Lena was waiting in the lobby, looking every inch the CEO in a black suit that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage. But when she saw him, her expression softened, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be, Ryan said. Let's go remind them why you're the best thing that ever happened to this company. They rode the elevator to the 9th floor, and Ryan could feel Lena's nervous energy beside him. He took her hand and she squeezed back, drawing strength from the contact. The boardroom was already full when they entered. Mitchell sat at the far end again, looking confident and prepared. The other board members were arranged around the table, their expressions ranging from supportive to hostile. Margaret Chen nodded at Ryan in greeting, a small smile on her face. A few others looked surprised to see him again, as if they'd assumed his presence last time was a fluke. Shall we begin? Mitchell said, not waiting for an answer. I've called this meeting to revisit the question of leadership in light of recent developments that I believe demonstrate a pattern of poor judgment and mismanagement. He pulled up his presentation, and Ryan settled in for what he knew would be a long morning. But as Mitchell began laying out his case, detailing the delays in Ohio and the employee complaints and the supposedly declining confidence in Lena's leadership, Ryan found himself watching Lena instead. She sat perfectly still, her expression neutral, taking notes on a legal pad. She didn't interrupt, didn't argue, just listened and documented. And Ryan realized something important. She wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever uncertainty she'd felt 2 weeks ago in his garage had been replaced by quiet confidence. She knew her worth, she knew she was right, and she was going to prove it. When Mitchell finished his presentation, Lena stood. She didn't have slides or charts this time. She just stood there in her father's place and began to speak, her voice clear and unwavering. Robert is correct that the Ohio modernization is behind schedule by approximately 3 weeks. What he didn't mention is that we discovered structural issues during the renovation that weren't caught in the initial assessment. We could have ignored them, stayed on schedule, and dealt with a potential catastrophic failure in 2 years. Or we could do it right. I chose to do it right. She looked at each board member in turn. As for the employee complaints, yes, there are 7 workers out of 340 who aren't happy with the new systems. 7. That's a 2% dissatisfaction rate, which means 98% of our workforce is either neutral or actively enthusiastic about the changes. In any organizational transformation, you will have resistance. The question is whether you let a vocal minority derail necessary progress. Mitchell started to interrupt, but Lena held up a hand. I'm not finished. You want to talk about patterns of judgment? Let's talk about patterns. In the 18 months I've been CEO, we've increased revenue by 34%. We've reduced workplace injuries by 46%. We've improved employee retention by 28%. We've expanded into 3 new markets and secured contracts with 5 major clients who specifically chose Hart Global because of our reputation for quality and integrity. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table to Mitchell. And since you brought up the Ohio factory, let's talk about your alternative plan. The one where we close it and move production to Mexico. I had our accounting department run a full cost-benefit analysis, including factors you conveniently omitted. When you account for transition costs, potential tariff changes, quality control issues associated with rapid relocation, and the reputational damage of laying off 300 American workers, your plan would have actually cost us more money over 10 years than my modernization approach. You weren't proposing a better business decision. You were proposing a different ideological approach that happened to align with your personal interests. The room was dead silent. Mitchell's face had gone red. Lena continued, relentless now. This isn't about competent leadership versus incompetent leadership. This is about 2 different visions for what this company should be. Robert believes in maximizing short-term profits, regardless of long-term consequences or human cost. I believe in building sustainable value that serves all our stakeholders, employees, customers, shareholders, and communities. Both are legitimate business philosophies, but only one aligns with the values my father built this company on. She sat down, and the silence stretched for a long moment. Then Margaret spoke. I move that we table any further votes of no confidence for a minimum of 2 years, allowing Lena to demonstrate the long-term results of her leadership approach without constant political interference. Seconded, said another board member immediately. That's highly irregular, Mitchell protested. We can't just suspend the board's oversight authority. We're not suspending anything, Margaret said calmly. We're simply acknowledging that constant votes of no confidence are disruptive to leadership and counterproductive to the company's success. If there's genuine cause for concern in 2 years, we can revisit the question. But I'm tired of these political games, Robert, and I think I'm not alone. She looked around the table, and Ryan saw nods of agreement from several members. All in favor of the motion? This time, 8 hands went up. Only Mitchell and 2 others voted against. The motion passes, Margaret announced. Lena Hart will continue as CEO with full authority for a minimum of 2 years. Mitchell stood abruptly, gathering his materials. This is a mistake. You're all making an emotional decision that you'll regret when the numbers prove me right. Then I guess we'll see in 2 years, Lena said calmly. Thank you for your concern, Robert. After Mitchell stormed out and the other board members filed away, Lena sat very still, staring at her hands. Ryan waited, giving her time to process. I did it, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I actually did it. You did, Ryan confirmed. You were brilliant. I have 2 years now. 2 years to prove that this approach works, that you can run a business with integrity and still succeed. You'll do it, Ryan said with absolute confidence. I've seen what you're capable of. 2 years from now, they'll be trying to give you a lifetime appointment. Lena laughed, and it was relieved and genuine. She turned to Ryan, and there were tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. I couldn't have done this without you, both times. Just knowing you were there, that someone believed in me without needing to see the spreadsheets or understand the politics, that made all the difference. I'll always believe in you, Ryan said simply. That's not going to change. They left the building together, and Ryan was surprised when Lena didn't head toward the executive parking garage. Instead, she walked with him to the visitor lot where his replacement truck, a slightly better used Ford that still burned oil but ran more reliably, was parked. I'm taking the rest of the day off, Lena announced. First time in 18 months that I've voluntarily left the office before 5 p.m. on a weekday. Rebellious, Ryan teased. What are you going to do with all this freedom? I was thinking maybe I could pick Emma up from school with you, if that's okay. I've never done the whole after-school pickup thing, and it sounds nice. Ryan felt warmth spread through his chest. Yeah, that's more than okay. They drove to Emma's school together, arriving 20 minutes early and joining the line of parents waiting outside the main entrance. Lena looked slightly out of place in her executive suit among the casual clothes of the other parents, but she didn't seem to care. She was too busy watching the school doors, waiting for Emma to emerge. When the bell rang and children started pouring out, Emma spotted them immediately. Her face lit up and she ran over, launching herself at Lena first this time. Lena, you're here, at my school. I am, Lena said, hugging her back. Your dad said I could come along for pickup. Is that cool? So cool, Emma confirmed. Wait until Mia sees that my dad brought a pretty lady to pick me up. She's going to be so jealous. They drove home with Emma chattering about her day, and Ryan caught Lena's expression in the rear-view mirror. She looked happy. Actually, genuinely happy in a way he hadn't seen before. Not the polished professional satisfaction of a successful business deal, but the simple joy of being included in something real. Back at the apartment, Emma immediately recruited Lena to help with homework while Ryan started dinner. He listened to them in the other room, Lena patiently explaining fractions using cookies as visual aids, and felt something settle in his chest. This felt right, all of it. The strange combination of billionaire CEO and single dad mechanic, the mismatched worlds colliding in his small apartment, the improbable relationship that somehow worked despite all the reasons it shouldn't. Later that night, after Emma was in bed and Lena was getting ready to leave, she paused at the door and turned to Ryan. I've been thinking, she said carefully, about what I said a few weeks ago, about wondering if I was fighting the wrong fight. Ryan waited, letting her work through whatever she needed to say. I realize now I was asking the wrong question. It's not about whether the company is worth fighting for. It's about whether I can have both. The company and this. You and Emma and Sunday afternoons and school pickups. A real life alongside the professional one. Can you? Ryan asked gently. I want to try. Really try. Not just squeeze personal stuff into the margins when work allows. I want to set boundaries. Leave the office at reasonable hours. Take weekends off. Build a life that's about more than just proving myself. She looked at him. But I can only do that if I have something worth building it for. Someone worth building it with. Ryan crossed to her and took both her hands in his. You have that. You've had it since the night you walked into my garage and asked me to take a chance on something crazy. I'm all in, Lena. Whatever that looks like. However we make it work. I'm in. Lena kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. I'm in too, she whispered, completely, terrifyingly in. The next 3 months transformed both their lives in ways neither of them had anticipated. Lena kept her promise about boundaries, implementing what her executive team initially called her radical new schedule. She left the office by 6 every evening unless there was a genuine emergency. She took Sundays completely off, no emails, no calls, no exceptions. She hired a second assistant specifically to manage her personal life, blocking out time for the things that mattered outside the boardroom. Her executives were shocked. The board members who'd supported her were cautiously approving. And Mitchell, still fuming from his second defeat, watched everything with calculating eyes, waiting for her to slip. But Lena didn't slip. If anything, she got sharper. The time away from the office gave her perspective and energy. She made better decisions because she wasn't exhausted. She led more effectively because she remembered why the work mattered, and the company continued to thrive. Ryan's life changed too, though in quieter ways. Lena started spending more evenings at the apartment, joining them for dinner 3 or 4 times a week. She'd show up with groceries, insisting on contributing since she was eating their food, and Ryan would find expensive ingredients mixed in with his usual budget staples. Emma started setting 3 places at the table automatically, expecting Lena to be there. They fell into routines that felt domestic and permanent. Lena helped Emma with homework while Ryan cooked. They watched movies together on Friday nights, Emma wedged between them on the couch. Lena attended Emma's school concerts and parent-teacher conferences, sitting beside Ryan like she belonged there. But the differences in their worlds still surfaced in unexpected ways. When Emma mentioned wanting dance lessons, and Ryan had to gently explain that they couldn't afford them right now, Lena immediately offered to pay. Ryan refused, more sharply than he'd intended, and they had their first real fight about money and pride and the complicated dynamics of their relationship. "I'm not trying to buy my way into your life," Lena had said, frustrated and hurt. "I'm trying to help. Emma wants dance lessons. I can afford them. Why is that a problem?" "Because she's my daughter and I provide for her," Ryan shot back. "I know I can't give her everything, but what I do give her is earned. I don't want her growing up thinking that things just appear because someone with money waves their hand." "So you'd rather she miss out on something she wants because of your pride?" "It's not about pride. It's about teaching her the value of things, about her understanding that good things come from hard work, not from someone else's checkbook." They'd eventually found a compromise. Lena sponsored a dance scholarship program at Emma's school, funding lessons for 10 kids, including Emma. It wasn't charity for Ryan's daughter specifically. It was an investment in the community that happened to benefit Emma along with 9 other children. Ryan could accept that, barely. But the incident left both of them rattled, forcing them to confront the fundamental inequality in their relationship. Lena had resources Ryan couldn't match. She could solve problems with money that would take him months or years to address through work and saving, and they both had to figure out how to navigate that reality without it destroying what they were building. Emma, for her part, seemed to adjust to Lena's presence with the easy acceptance of childhood. She started calling Lena by name instead of Daddy's friend, which felt like progress. She asked Lena questions about her work, fascinated by the idea of someone running a huge company. And she started talking about the future in ways that included Lena, making plans for things they'd do together months from now. Ryan noticed and tried not to think too hard about what it meant. Because if this thing with Lena fell apart, it wouldn't just be his heart that broke. It would be Emma's too. And that terrified him more than anything. 4 months after the second board meeting, Lena showed up at the garage on a Tuesday afternoon looking agitated. Ryan was doing an oil change on a Subaru when he saw her pacing outside through the window. He finished up quickly and met her at the door. "What's wrong?" he asked, wiping his hands. "Nothing's wrong exactly. Something's happened. Something big." Lena ran her hands through her hair, destroying the careful style. "I got a call this morning from Marcus Chen. He's the CEO of Chen Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates in Asia. They want to partner with Heart Global on a massive expansion project. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, thousands of new jobs, potential to triple our international presence." That sounds amazing," Ryan said carefully. "So why do you look like you're about to be sick?" "Because the negotiations would require me to spend 6 weeks in Singapore, meeting with their executives, touring facilities, hammering out details. 6 weeks, Ryan. Away from the office, away from everything here, away from you and Emma." Ryan felt his stomach drop. 6 weeks. "I know, it's too much. I'll tell them no. We can find another way to structure the deal, maybe send someone else to handle the initial negotiations, and I can finalize everything remotely." "Lena." Ryan stopped her spiraling. "This is huge for your company, for your career. You can't turn it down because of us." "I can if the cost is losing what we've built here. I meant what I said about having a life outside of work, about prioritizing the things that matter. You and Emma matter more than any business deal." Ryan pulled her into the small office at the back of the garage where they could have privacy. "Sit down. Let's think through this rationally instead of making emotional decisions we'll regret." Lena sat, and Ryan took the chair across from her. 6 weeks is a long time," he said. "But it's not forever. We can handle 6 weeks if it means securing your company's future. Emma and I will miss you like crazy, but we'll survive." "What if Emma thinks I'm abandoning her? What if she thinks I'm just like her mother, leaving when things get complicated?" "Emma knows you're not like her mother. She knows you're going for work, not running away from her. We'll video call every day. You'll still be part of her life, even if you're on the other side of the world." "What about us?" Lena asked quietly. 6 weeks apart when we're still figuring this out. What if the distance makes you realize you're better off without all my complications?" Ryan reached across and took her hands. "That's not going to happen. I'm not going anywhere. But I need you to be honest with me. Do you want to go?" Not because you feel obligated or because it's good for the company, but because this opportunity excites you? Lena was quiet for a long moment. It does, she admitted. This is the kind of deal that could transform Hart Global into a truly international player. It's everything my father dreamed of but never quite achieved, and I want to be the one who makes it happen. I want to prove that his faith in me was justified. Then you should go, Ryan said simply. You should take this opportunity and knock it out of the park. Emma and I will be here when you get back. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You go do what you need to do. We'll hold down the fort here, and in 6 weeks you come home and tell us all about it. Lena's eyes were bright with unshed tears. What did I do to deserve you? You walked into a garage and asked a mechanic to take a chance on something crazy. Turns out, I'm pretty good at crazy. They told Emma that evening over dinner. Lena explained about the business trip, about Singapore, about being gone for 6 weeks but calling every day. Emma's face fell, but she listened carefully. 6 weeks is a really long time, Emma said finally. I know, sweetheart, I'm going to miss you so much, but this is really important for my work, and your dad thinks I should go. Emma looked at Ryan, seeking confirmation. You think she should go? I do, Ryan said. Sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things for their jobs. It doesn't mean Lena doesn't care about us. It just means she has responsibilities she needs to take care of. Like when you have to work late at the garage and Mrs. Chen picks me up? Exactly like that, Ryan confirmed. Emma thought about this, her face serious. Then she turned to Lena. Will you bring me back a present? Lena laughed, relieved. The best present I can find, I promise. And will you really call every day, every single day? Even if it's the middle of the night for me, I'll call when it's a good time for you. Okay, Emma said, and just like that, she accepted it. But 6 weeks is still really long. You better come back. I will, Lena promised, pulling Emma into a hug. I absolutely will. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Lena worked longer hours than she had in months, getting everything organized so the company could run smoothly in her absence. She promoted her VP of operations to acting CEO, established clear communication protocols, and made sure her executive team was prepared for any situation that might arise. She also spent every possible moment with Ryan and Emma. They went to the park, to movies, to the library. They had dinner together every night. Lena read to Emma before bed, savoring the quiet moments that she'd soon be missing. The night before her flight, Lena stayed late after Emma went to sleep. She and Ryan sat on the balcony overlooking the alley, drinking coffee and pretending they weren't both dreading the morning. I'm terrified, Lena admitted. Not of the negotiations or the business side. I can handle that. I'm terrified that 6 weeks is going to be too long, that something will happen and I won't be here, that Emma will need me and I'll be halfway around the world. We'll be okay, Ryan said. And if something happens, you'll be on the next flight home. But nothing's going to happen. We're going to miss you, count down the days, and be waiting at the airport when you get back. Promise me something, Lena said. Promise me you'll be honest if this is too hard. If Emma's struggling or if you need me to come home early, don't just tough it out because you think that's what I need to hear. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. Promise you'll actually focus on the work while you're there. Don't spend the whole 6 weeks feeling guilty or second-guessing this decision. You're doing something incredible for your company and your father's legacy. Let yourself be proud of that. I'll try, Lena said. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the city sounds. Finally, Ryan said, You know what I realized today? 6 months ago, I didn't even know you existed. I was just a mechanic working late, trying to make ends meet, thinking my life was pretty much set. And then you walked in and everything changed. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's the best thing, Ryan said immediately. You made me remember that there's more to life than just surviving day to day. You made me want things I'd stopped letting myself want. A partner. Someone to share the weight with. Someone who sees me as more than just Emma's dad or the guy who fixes cars. You are so much more than that, Lena said fiercely. You're the person who taught me what real strength looks like, what integrity means in practice, not just as a corporate value statement. You're the person who made me believe I could have a life outside that boardroom. We're quite a pair, Ryan said with a smile. The mechanic and the millionaire. Billionaire, technically, Lena corrected, then laughed at his expression. Sorry, that sounded obnoxious. My point is the money doesn't matter. The titles don't matter. What matters is this, us, what we've built together. Then trust it, Ryan said. Trust that what we have is strong enough to survive 6 weeks apart, because I do. The airport the next morning was crowded and chaotic. Emma held Lena's hand tightly while Ryan carried Lena's luggage to the international terminal. When they reached the security checkpoint where Ryan and Emma couldn't follow, Emma threw her arms around Lena's waist. I'm going to miss you so much, Emma said, her voice muffled against Lena's jacket. I'm going to miss you too, sweetheart, but I'll call you tonight, okay? As soon as I land. Promise? Promise. Lena knelt down to Emma's level. And you know what? While I'm gone, I want you to do something for me. I want you to be extra good for your dad. Help him around the house, do your homework without being asked, be the amazing kid I know you are. Can you do that? I can do that, Emma said seriously. Good, because when I get back, I'm going to want to hear all about what you've been up to, every detail. Emma nodded and stepped back, going to stand beside Ryan. Lena stood and faced Ryan, and for a moment neither of them spoke. 6 weeks, Lena said. 6 weeks, Ryan confirmed. And then you come home. Home, Lena repeated, and something in her expression shifted. Yeah, I like the sound of that. She kissed him, not caring about the crowds or the public setting, just needing the contact. Ryan kissed her back, putting everything he couldn't say into it. Go, he said when they finally broke apart. Go be brilliant, we'll be here. Lena grabbed her carry-on, waved one more time to Emma, and disappeared through security. Ryan and Emma stood there watching until she was completely out of sight. Come on, kiddo, Ryan said, taking Emma's hand. Let's go get breakfast. Pancakes sound good? With chocolate chips? With chocolate chips, Ryan confirmed. The first week without Lena was harder than Ryan expected. The apartment felt empty without her presence. Emma asked about her constantly, counting down the days until she'd be back, and Ryan found himself reaching for his phone a dozen times a day, wanting to share something with Lena before remembering she was 13 hours ahead and probably in meetings. But they adjusted. Lena called every evening Emma's time, which was early morning for her. They video chatted, and Emma would tell her about school while Lena drank coffee in her hotel room in Singapore. On weekends, they'd have longer calls, and Lena would show them the city through her phone camera. This is the gardens by the bay, Lena said one Sunday, panning across an incredible structure of metal trees and suspended walkways. And over there is the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. It looks like a ship on top of 3 towers. It's so pretty, Emma breathed. Are you having fun? I'm working really hard, Lena said. But yes, parts of it are fun. The food is amazing and the people I'm meeting are really interesting. But I miss you guys like crazy. We miss you too, Emma said. Daddy made spaghetti last night and it wasn't as good as when you help. Hey, Ryan protested from off camera. My spaghetti is perfectly fine. It's fine, Emma agreed diplomatically, but it's better with Lena. By week 3, Ryan could see the strain starting to show on Lena. The negotiations were intense, the hours brutal. She looked exhausted during their calls, dark circles under her eyes despite the makeup she wore for business meetings. How's it going really? Ryan asked one night after Emma had gone to bed, and they had a few minutes to talk privately. It's going well. The deal is coming together. Chen Industries is impressed with our proposals, and I think we're close to a preliminary agreement. Lena rubbed her temples. But it's exhausting. 12-hour negotiation sessions, navigating cultural differences, managing my team here while trying to keep tabs on what's happening back home. I knew it would be hard, but this is next level. You can handle it, Ryan said. I've seen you in action. You were born for this. Sometimes I wonder if I was born for any of this, Lena said quietly, or if I've just convinced myself I have to do it because of my father's legacy. There are moments in these meetings where I think about what it would be like to just walk away from all of it. Come home, be with you and Emma, live a simpler life. Is that what you really want? Lena was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. A year ago, the answer would have been a clear no. The company was everything. But now I have something else to compare it to. Something that makes me happier than any business deal ever has. But, Ryan prompted, hearing the unspoken word. But I'm also good at this. Really good. And there's a satisfaction in that. In knowing I can walk into a room full of powerful people and hold my own. In building something that matters and employs thousands of people. I just wish I didn't have to choose between the work I'm good at and the life I actually want. Maybe you don't have to choose, Ryan said. Maybe you just have to find better balance. You've been doing that these past few months, right? Making time for both? Until I had to spend 6 weeks on the other side of the world, Lena pointed out. Which is temporary. An exception, not the rule. When you get back, you go back to the boundaries you set, the schedule you established, the life we're building. 3 more weeks, Lena said. 3 more weeks and I'll be home. But the universe had other plans. 2 days later, Ryan's phone rang at 2 in the morning. He fumbled for it, heart pounding because calls at that hour never meant anything good. Ryan? Lena's voice was strained and shaky. I need to tell you something. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm fine, but there's been a complication with the deal. Chen Industries wants to add another component to the partnership, but it requires additional negotiations. My team thinks we should agree because it would make the overall deal even better, but it means I need to stay longer. How much longer? Ryan asked, though he already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. Another 3 weeks, maybe 4. Lena's voice broke. Ryan, I can't do it. I can't stay away that long. I'm already barely holding it together. 9 or 10 weeks total? I'll tell them no. We can structure the deal without this additional piece. Ryan sat up, fully awake now. How much better would the deal be with this component? Ryan, answer the question, Lena. How much better? Significantly. It would add manufacturing capabilities in Southeast Asia, create about 2,000 additional jobs across both companies, and position Hart Global as a major player in the Asian market for the next decade. But I don't care about any of that if it means you care, Ryan said gently. You care a lot, and you should. This is exactly the kind of opportunity you went there to pursue. Not at the cost of losing you and Emma. You're not going to lose us. We've made it 3 weeks. We can make it 6 more if we have to. But Emma is fine. She misses you, but she understands. And she'll understand this too. We both will. Ryan took a breath. Lena, I know this is hard. I know you want to be here, but you're so close to something incredible. Don't walk away from it because you're tired and homesick. See it through. Finish what you started. Are you sure? Lena asked, and she sounded so small and uncertain that Ryan's heart ached. I'm sure. We'll be here. We'll wait. And when you finally do come home, you'll have closed the deal of the century and proved once and for all that you're exactly the leader your company needs. I love you, Lena said suddenly. I haven't said it before because I was scared and the timing never felt right. But I love you. I need you to know that. Ryan felt his breath catch. I love you too. I think I have since the night you walked into my garage and asked me to take a crazy chance with you. 3 more weeks minimum, Lena said. I'll work as fast as I can to get through these negotiations. We'll be counting the days, Ryan promised. Telling Emma was harder. She took the news quietly, her face falling, and Ryan could see her trying to be brave. I know it's disappointing, sweetheart, he said, but this is really important for Lena's work. She wants to be here, but she needs to finish what she started. I understand, Emma said in a small voice, but I miss her. I know. I miss her too. That night, Emma crawled into bed with Ryan, something she hadn't done in over a year. She curled up against his side, and he held her while she cried quietly. What if she doesn't come back? Emma whispered. What if she decides to stay there forever like Mom did? Lena is not like your mom, Ryan said firmly. She's coming back. She promised, and Lena keeps her promises. She's just working really hard on something important right now. Does she still love us even though she's been gone so long? Ryan's heart broke a little. She loves us so much, Emma. That's why this is so hard for her. She wants to be here with us, but she also has responsibilities she needs to take care of. Being a grown-up means sometimes you have to do hard things even when you don't want to. The next 3 weeks crawled by. Lena called every day, but the strain was showing on everyone. Emma became quieter, more withdrawn. Ryan found himself short-tempered with customers at the garage, frustrated by delays and complications that normally wouldn't bother him. And Lena looked progressively more exhausted, the pressure of the negotiations wearing her down. "I'm close," she said during a call in week 5. "Maybe one more week. Chen and I are ironing out the final details." "One more week we can handle," Ryan said, trying to inject confidence he didn't entirely feel. But 1 week turned into 8 days, then 10. Each delay was small, reasonable, necessary, but they added up, stretching the separation longer and longer. On day 63, nearly 9 full weeks since Lena had left, Ryan's phone rang with a video call from an unknown number. He answered to find Lena's face filling the screen, but she was crying. "It's done," she said. "We signed the agreement 2 hours ago. The deal is finalized. I'm coming home." "When?" Ryan asked. "Tomorrow. I'm catching a flight first thing in the morning. I'll be home by tomorrow evening, your time." Lena wiped her eyes. "Ryan, I can't do this again. I know this deal was important, and I'm proud of what we accomplished, but I can't spend 2 months away from you and Emma. It's too hard. It costs too much." "We'll figure it out," Ryan said. "When you get home, we'll figure out how to make this work better. But right now, just get on that plane and come home to us." "Home," Lena repeated, and she smiled through her tears. "Yeah, I'm coming home." Ryan told Emma the news as soon as she got home from school, and her shriek of joy probably alarmed the neighbors. She insisted on making a welcome home sign, covering an entire poster board with drawings and messages. Ryan helped her hang it in the living room, and they spent the evening cleaning the apartment and preparing for Lena's return. The next evening, Ryan and Emma went to the airport 3 hours early because Emma couldn't stand waiting at home. They stood at the international arrivals gate, Emma bouncing on her toes with the sign held high. When Lena finally emerged through the doors, pulling her luggage and looking exhausted, Emma screamed and ran to her. Lena dropped everything and caught her, holding her tight while Emma wrapped around her like a barnacle. "I missed you so much," Emma said into Lena's shoulder. So much. "I missed you too, sweetheart. Every single day." Lena looked up and met Ryan's eyes over Emma's head, and there were tears streaming down her face. Ryan crossed to them and wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there in the middle of the busy airport, 3 people who'd survived 9 weeks apart and were finally together again. "Let's go home," Lena said when they finally separated. "I just want to go home and be with my family." My family. The words settled over Ryan like a benediction, like a promise of everything they'd been building toward. Because that's what they'd become over the past 7 months. A family. Imperfect and complicated and from completely different worlds, but a family nonetheless. The drive back to the apartment was filled with Emma's non-stop chatter, telling Lena about everything that had happened in 9 weeks. Lena listened to every word, asking questions and exclaiming at appropriate moments, her hand finding Ryan's on the center console and holding tight. When they finally got back to the apartment, Lena stopped in the doorway and just looked around. At the mismatched furniture and Emma's art on the refrigerator and the well-worn couch where they'd watched countless movies together. "I dreamed about this place," she said quietly. "Every night in that hotel room, I'd think about being here, about what it felt like to belong somewhere." "You do belong here," Ryan said. "You always have." Emma tugged Lena toward her room, insisting on showing her every single thing that had changed or happened while she was gone. Ryan made tea and started dinner, listening to their voices through the wall, and felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled for 9 weeks. Later that night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep from the excitement and they'd eaten a late dinner, Lena and Ryan sat on the balcony in the cool evening air. "I made a decision while I was gone," Lena said. "Several decisions, actually." "Tell me." "I'm promoting 2 of my VPs to co-COOs. They'll handle the day-to-day operations and the bulk of international travel. I'll still be CEO, still make the major strategic decisions, but I'm delegating more. A lot more." Lena turned to face him. "I also told the board that I won't accept any assignment that requires me to be away for more than 2 weeks at a time. If deals require longer negotiations, someone else goes. My presence isn't essential for everything, and I need to stop acting like it is. They agreed to that? They didn't have much choice. I told them it was a condition of me staying as CEO. I've proved I can do the job. Now I get to do it on terms that allow me to actually have a life. Lena took his hand. I missed Emma's 8th birthday. Well, I called and we did a video chat, but I missed actually being there. I missed 63 days of watching her grow up. I missed 63 dinners with you, 63 nights of just being together. I'm not doing that again. What if the board pushes back? What if Mitchell uses this as ammunition against you? Let him try. I'll fight him if I have to, but I'm done sacrificing the things that actually matter for the things I'm supposed to care about. Lena squeezed his hand. My father built that company so he could provide for his family and give people good jobs. Somewhere along the way, I forgot the first part. I was so focused on honoring his legacy by running the company that I forgot his actual legacy was making sure the people he loved knew they were loved. I won't forget that again. Ryan pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, listening to the city and just being together. I have something to ask you, Lena said eventually. And I know the timing might seem fast, but 9 weeks alone gave me a lot of time to think about what I want. Okay, Ryan said carefully. I want this to be real. Not just dating, not just seeing where things go. I want to build a life with you and Emma. I want to wake up here instead of in that sterile apartment. I want to be part of the daily routine, the homework help, the school events, all of it. Lena pulled back to look at him. I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet anyway, but I'm asking if I can move in, if we can officially be a family instead of just playing at it. Ryan felt his heart hammer in his chest. It was fast. It was crazy. It was everything he wanted and everything that terrified him. Emma, he said. We need to talk to Emma first. This affects her as much as us, maybe more. Of course, Lena agreed immediately. I wouldn't do this without her being completely on board. And we do it slowly. Maybe you start staying over more nights, keep some things here, ease into it rather than just moving in all at once. Whatever feels right, Lena said. I'm not trying to rush this or force anything. I know what I want. And I wanted you to know that too. Ryan kissed her, soft and sure. I want it too, he admitted. I want you here. Emma wants you here. But let's do it right. Make sure we're all ready for what this means. Deal, Lena said, and she smiled. We're pretty good at making deals, you and me. The best, Ryan agreed. They went inside together, and Ryan thought about the mechanic he'd been 7 months ago, working late and struggling to make ends meet, never imagining that a woman in expensive clothes would walk into his garage and change everything. Never dreaming that he'd fall in love with a billionaire CEO, or that she'd fall in love with him, or that they'd somehow make it work despite all the reasons it shouldn't. Life was strange and unpredictable and occasionally magical. And standing in his small apartment with the woman he loved sleeping in the next room and his daughter dreaming in her bed, Ryan decided he wouldn't change a single thing. The conversation with Emma happened the following weekend over breakfast at their favorite diner, the one with the sticky booths and waitresses who knew Emma's order by heart. Lena sat across from Ryan while Emma worked her way through a stack of chocolate chip pancakes, and they both waited for the right moment to bring it up. Finally, Ryan set down his coffee and said, Emma, Lena and I want to talk to you about something important. Emma looked up, syrup on her chin, instantly alert to the serious tone. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, nothing like that, Lena assured her. We just want to know how you'd feel about something, about me being around more, like a lot more. You're already here a lot, Emma pointed out. You have dinner with us almost every night. That's true, but what if I stayed over more nights? What if I kept some of my things at the apartment so I didn't have to keep going back and forth? What if we were all together more officially? Lena glanced at Ryan, then back to Emma. How would you feel about that? Emma was quiet for a moment, considering this with the gravity it deserved. Would you sleep in Daddy's room? Yes, Lena said honestly. Is that okay with you? I guess so. Sarah's mom has a boyfriend who stays over sometimes. Emma took another bite of pancakes, chewing thoughtfully. Would you leave again, like you did for Singapore? The question hit both adults hard. Lena reached across the table and took Emma's hand. I won't lie to you and say I'll never have to travel for work, but I promise I will never be gone that long again, and I will always, always come back. This is where I want to be, with you and your dad. What if you change your mind? What if you decide you don't want to be with us anymore? Emma's voice was small, and Ryan recognized the fear underneath. She was thinking about her mother, about being left behind. Emma, look at me, Lena said gently. When Emma met her eyes, Lena continued, I can't promise that nothing will ever change or that we'll never have problems. But I can promise that I'm not going anywhere. I love you, I love your dad, and I'm choosing to be here because this is what I want more than anything else in the world. Do you promise? Emma asked. I promise, Lena said firmly. Cross my heart. Emma seemed to accept this. She went back to her pancakes, then said casually, Okay, you can move in, but you have to help with the hard math homework. Daddy's not very good at fractions. Hey, Ryan protested, but he was smiling. It's true, Daddy. You said so yourself last week. Lena laughed, and the tension that had been building broke. I can definitely help with math homework. Deal? Deal, Emma agreed, offering her sticky hand for a shake. They started slowly, just like Ryan had suggested. Lena brought over a few changes of clothes, some toiletries, work files she needed for early morning prep. She started staying 4 or 5 nights a week, and on the night she went back to her own apartment, they all felt the absence keenly. Ryan's neighbors noticed and had opinions, of course. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly and made pointed comments about how nice it was to see Ryan happy again. The couple downstairs asked nosy questions about Lena's car, always being in the lot. And Mr. Petra from 3B actually stopped Ryan in the hallway to tell him he'd seen Lena on the news and did Ryan know he was dating someone famous. She's not famous, Ryan had said. She's just successful. On the news is famous, Mr. Petrov insisted. You be careful. Rich people are different. But in the small world of their apartment, Lena wasn't different. She was the woman who helped Emma sound out difficult words in her reading homework. She was the person who learned to make Ryan's coffee the way he liked it, strong and black with just a hint of sugar. She was the one who insisted on contributing to groceries and utilities, who cleaned the bathroom without being asked, who gradually transformed the sterile apartment into something that felt like a real home. 6 weeks after Singapore, on a quiet Tuesday evening, Lena showed up at the apartment with a realtor in tow. What's going on? Ryan asked, confused. I'm selling my penthouse, Lena announced. It's too big, too expensive, and I hate it there. I haven't spent a night in it since I got back from Singapore, and I realized I don't want to, so I'm selling it and making this official. Lena, this apartment is tiny. It's barely big enough for Emma and me, let alone adding another person permanently. So we'll get a bigger place, Lena said. Together. Something that works for all 3 of us. I can't afford, then we find something I can afford and you contribute what you can. Or we find something we can both afford together. Or we figure out some other arrangement that works. But Ryan, I'm tired of maintaining 2 separate lives. I want one life with you and Emma, in a home we actually choose together. Emma, who'd been listening from her room, came running out. Does this mean we're moving? Can I have a bigger room? Can we get a place with a yard? Maybe, Lena said, laughing. We'll look at options and see what works for everyone. Ryan felt overwhelmed. This is happening really fast. We've been together for 8 months, Lena pointed out. I've spent 9 weeks on the other side of the world missing you desperately. I know what I want. But if you need more time, we can slow down. Ryan looked at Emma's excited face, then at Lena's hopeful expression, then around the small apartment that had been his refuge and his prison for 3 years. It was too small, and the heat didn't work right, and the neighbors were nosy. But it had been home because it was where he and Emma had built their life together. The question was whether he was brave enough to build something new. Okay, he said finally, let's look at options. But we do this as a family. All 3 of us have to agree on whatever we choose. Deal, Lena said, and Emma cheered. House hunting was an education in compromise and communication. Lena kept suggesting places that were gorgeous but felt sterile, all modern lines and minimalist design. Ryan looked at modest houses in their current neighborhood that Lena gently pointed out had structural issues or were in areas with failing schools. Emma wanted anywhere with a yard big enough for a dog. They were about to give up in frustration when their realtor showed them a house in a transitional neighborhood halfway between Ryan's garage and Lena's office. It was a craftsman-style home that had seen better days, with a yard that needed work and an interior that desperately needed updating. "It's a disaster," the realtor said apologetically. "I almost didn't show it to you, but it's the right size and the right location, and the price is reasonable." "It has good bones," Ryan said, walking through and seeing past the outdated fixtures and worn floors. "The foundation is solid. The roof looks newer. With some work, this could be really nice." "With a lot of work," Lena corrected, but she was smiling. "But I can see it. I can see us here." Emma had already claimed the bedroom with the window seat, announcing that this was where she'd read all her books. The yard was big enough for a dog and maybe a swing set. The kitchen was dated but functional. And there was a room that could be Ryan's workshop, a space for Lena's home office, and a living area that could actually fit everyone comfortably. "We'd have to renovate basically everything," Ryan said. "New kitchen, updated bathrooms, refinished floors. That's months of work and a lot of money." "I can handle the money," Lena said. "And you can handle the work. We'll hire contractors for the big stuff, but you could do a lot of it yourself if you wanted to. Make it really ours." Ryan walked through the empty house one more time, imagining what it could be. Emma's laughter echoing in the halls. Family dinners in a kitchen they'd designed together. Lena working late in her office while he watched TV in the living room. A real home, built from scratch by the three of them. "Let's do it," he said. "Let's make an offer." The offer was accepted within a day. Lena sold her penthouse for an obscene amount of money and put a significant portion of it into renovations on their new house. Ryan contributed what he could, and they established a joint account for household expenses that felt like a bigger commitment than any piece of paper. The renovation took 4 months. Ryan worked on it every evening and all weekend, stripping old wallpaper and refinishing floors, installing new fixtures and painting walls. Lena helped when she could, though her contributions mostly involved design decisions and writing checks to contractors. Emma picked paint colors for her room and helped Ryan sand cabinets until her arms were tired. Meanwhile, life continued to evolve in other ways. The Singapore deal had transformed Hart Global's international presence exactly as projected. Revenue was up 46%, and the board was thrilled. Even Mitchell had to grudgingly acknowledge the success, though he still looked for any opportunity to undermine Lena's authority. But Lena had kept her promise about boundaries. She left the office by 6 most evenings. She took weekends off unless there was a genuine emergency. She delegated extensively and empowered her team to handle situations that didn't absolutely require her direct involvement. And the company thrived under this new approach, proving that sustainable leadership was actually more effective than the burnout culture she'd been perpetuating. Ryan's garage was doing better too. Word had spread about his quality work, and he'd gotten several new commercial accounts that provided steady income. He'd hired a part-time mechanic to help with the workload, a young guy fresh out of technical school who reminded Ryan of himself 10 years ago. For the first time in years, Ryan wasn't constantly worried about making rent or covering Emma's expenses. The changes in their financial situation created some awkward moments. When Emma needed new school clothes, Lena bought them without thinking twice. When Ryan's truck needed major repairs, Lena offered to just buy him a new vehicle. These gestures came from generosity, but they also highlighted the massive inequality in their relationship. They fought about it one evening while painting the guest bedroom. Ryan had snapped at Lena for offering to pay for Emma's upcoming school trip to Washington, D.C., and Lena had snapped back that she was trying to help, and he needed to stop being so stubborn. "It's not about being stubborn," Ryan said, setting down his paint roller harder than necessary. "It's about Emma understanding that things have value, that you can't just throw money at every situation. I'm not throwing money at situations. I'm providing for the people I love. That's what family does. But she's my daughter. Providing for her is my responsibility." "And she's becoming my daughter too," Lena shot back. "Or have you not noticed how she introduces me to people? How she talks about my dad and Lena like we're a unit. I'm not trying to replace you or undermine you. I'm trying to be a partner. But you won't let me." The words hung in the air between them. Ryan put down his paint roller and faced her properly. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I keep thinking about this relationship like it's temporary, like eventually you'll realize you don't belong in this life and you'll go back to your world. But you're not going anywhere, are you? I'm not going anywhere, Lena confirmed. This is my world now. You and Emma and this house we're building together. I need you to believe that. I'm trying, Ryan admitted. But sometimes the difference between us feels so big. You casually spend more on renovations than I'll make in 5 years. You write checks without thinking about it while I'm still calculating every purchase. It's hard not to feel like I bring nothing to this relationship except complications. Lena crossed to him and took his paint-covered hands in hers. You bring everything that matters. You bring integrity and kindness and the ability to see people as people instead of transactions. You bring Emma, who's the best kid I've ever known. You bring stability and groundedness, and you remind me why any of the work I do actually matters. She squeezed his hands. I have money. That's all it is. You have everything else. We're going to keep having this fight, Ryan said. Every time the money difference comes up, we're going to struggle with it. Probably, Lena agreed, but we'll figure it out, just like we figured out everything else. They finished painting the guest room in silence, working side by side until the walls were a soft sage green that Lena had picked and Ryan had approved. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was progress. And in a relationship built on bridging different worlds, progress was what mattered. The house was finally finished in early November, just in time for Emma's 8th birthday. They threw a party in their new home, inviting Emma's school friends and Ryan's neighbors and a few of Lena's colleagues who'd become genuine friends. Margaret Chen brought a beautiful hand-painted vase as a housewarming gift. Mrs. Chen from Ryan's old building made dumplings. Emma's teacher commented on how nice it was to see a child in such a stable, loving home. Ryan watched Lena navigate between different groups, equally comfortable talking to his mechanic employee and her executive VP of operations. She'd learned to code switch, to be herself in any context without losing the core of who she was. And Emma moved through the crowd like a little hostess, introducing her friends to my dad and Lena with obvious pride. Later that night, after the guests had left and Emma had gone to bed exhausted and happy, Ryan and Lena sat on their new back porch looking at the yard they'd need to landscape in the spring. This is nice, Lena said contentedly, having a home that's actually ours, not yours or mine, but ours. It is, Ryan agreed, though I still can't believe I live in a house with 4 bathrooms. That's 1 bathroom per person and a spare. It's excessive. It's reasonable, Lena corrected, and you were the one who said we should have a guest room for when Emma has friends sleep over. I also said we didn't need heated bathroom floors. But aren't they nice? Lena teased. Admit it, you love the heated floors. They're okay, Ryan said, fighting a smile. I could take them, or leave them. Liar. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena said, I got a call from the board yesterday. They want to make my CEO position permanent. No more interim status, no more 6-month reviews, just a standard contract with a formal appointment. Lena, that's incredible. Why didn't you lead with that? Because I wanted to think about it first, to make sure it's what I really want. Lena turned to look at him. It comes with expectations. Increased responsibilities, more visibility, pressure to perform at an even higher level. And I need to make sure I can do all of that while still being the partner and parent I promised to be. You can, Ryan said with certainty. You've proved that over the past year. You've run that company better than anyone else could while still showing up for Emma's school events and eating dinner with us most nights. The permanent position doesn't change that. But what if it does? What if I get comfortable in the role and start sliding back into old patterns? Working too late, traveling too much, prioritizing the company over everything else? Then I'll call you on it, Ryan said simply. That's what partners do. We keep each other honest. We remind each other what actually matters. And if you start sliding back into those patterns, I'll tell you, just like you'd tell me if I was spending too much time at the garage and not enough time at home. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm going to accept it. The permanent CEO position. Because I've earned it and because I can do it the right way. My way. Damn right you can, Ryan said. There's something else, Lena said. Something I've been thinking about for a while now. Okay. I want to adopt Emma, legally. I want to be her parent for real, not just the woman who lives with her dad and helps with homework. Lena sat up and looked at him seriously. I know that's a huge thing to ask. I know she's your daughter, and I'm not trying to replace you or diminish your role, but I love her like she's mine, and I want to make it official." Ryan felt emotion swell in his chest. "You want to adopt Emma. If you're okay with it, and if she wants it, I don't want to push or assume, but—" "Yes," Ryan interrupted. "God, yes, Lena, you've been more of a parent to her this past year than her biological mother ever was. Emma adores you, and making it legal, making you her mother officially, that would mean everything to her, to both of us." "Really?" Lena's eyes were bright with tears. "Really? We'll talk to Emma, but I'm pretty sure I know what she'll say." They told Emma the next morning over breakfast in their new kitchen. She listened carefully as they explained what adoption meant, how Lena would officially become her parent with all the same rights and responsibilities as Ryan. "So you'd be my mom?" Emma asked Lena. "Like for real?" "For real," Lena confirmed. "If that's what you want." Emma thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. "Yes, I want that. Can I call you Mom instead of Lena?" Lena burst into tears, nodding. "You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart." Mom," Emma said, testing it out. "Mom, hey, Mom, can you pass the orange juice?" She giggled. "That sounds good." Ryan watched them hug, his daughter and the woman who'd become so much more than he'd ever expected, and felt his own eyes burning. A year ago, he'd been a struggling single father working late hours and barely keeping his head above water. Now he had a partner, a home, and a family that was choosing each other deliberately and completely. The adoption process took 4 months. Emma's biological mother had to be located and served with papers, and there was a tense week where they worried she might contest it. But in the end, she signed away her parental rights without much fuss, apparently relieved to be officially free of responsibility. The court hearing was in March, on a rainy Wednesday morning. They dressed up and brought Margaret Chen as a character witness. The judge was a woman in her 60s who reviewed the paperwork, interviewed Emma privately to ensure this was what she wanted, and then made it official with the strike of a gavel. "Congratulations," she said, smiling at them. "You're officially a family." Emma threw her arms around Lena, saying "Mom" over and over, like she was making up for lost time. Lena held her tight, crying happy tears while Ryan wrapped his arms around both of them. Outside the courthouse, they took a family photo on the steps, the 3 of them squeezed together under an umbrella. Emma insisted on posting it to the family group chat they'd created, announcing to anyone who cared that she now had 2 parents officially. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Emma asked, "even though it's raining?" "Absolutely," Lena said. "This definitely calls for celebratory ice cream." They went to the same ice cream parlor where they'd gone on their first full day together, nearly a year ago. Emma ordered chocolate with sprinkles. Lena got vanilla. Ryan stuck with butter pecan. They sat by the window watching the rain and eating ice cream, and Ryan marveled at how much had changed since that first park visit. Work continued to evolve for both of them. Lena's permanent CEO appointment was announced publicly, and the business press wrote glowing articles about her innovative leadership style. The Singapore deal continued to pay dividends, and Hart Global expanded into 2 more international markets. Mitchell finally retired, unable to compete with Lena's clear success, and she replaced him with a younger executive who shared her values. Ryan's garage grew too. He hired 2 more mechanics and expanded into the neighboring storefront, creating a proper waiting area and doubling his service capacity. He started teaching an evening class at the local technical college, sharing his knowledge with students who reminded him of himself at that age. And he found satisfaction in the work that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with doing something he was good at. But the most important changes were the small daily ones. Coming home to a house that felt like a home, eating dinner together every night unless work absolutely prevented it, helping Emma with homework and arguing about bedtimes and planning weekend outings. Being a family in all the ordinary, unremarkable ways that actually mattered most. One evening in late spring, almost exactly a year after Lena had first walked into his garage, Ryan came home to find Lena and Emma in the backyard. Emma was running around with the puppy they'd finally gotten, a golden retriever mix named Sunny, who had too much energy and not enough sense. Lena was weeding the garden they'd planted together, dirt under her fingernails and her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked up when she heard him and smiled, and Ryan felt his heart do the thing it always did when she smiled at him like that. Like he was the best part of her day. "Hey," she called. There's dinner in the oven. Emma and I made lasagna. It's going to be really good, Emma added, throwing a tennis ball for Sonny. Mom let me put extra cheese on top. Ryan stood on the back porch and looked at his family, at the life they'd built together from nothing but a crazy request in a garage and the willingness to take a chance on something impossible. He thought about the board meetings and the fights about money and the 9 weeks Lena had spent in Singapore. He thought about all the ways this could have fallen apart, all the obstacles that should have been insurmountable. And then he thought about how none of that mattered, because they'd chosen each other. Every day, in 1,000 small ways, they chose each other. "Ryan," Lena called. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, walking down to join them in the yard. "I'm perfect." That night, after dinner and after Emma had gone to bed, Ryan pulled out the small box he'd been hiding in his toolbox for the past month. Lena was on the couch reading a report for work, and he sat down beside her. "I have something for you," he said. Lena set down her work. "Okay." Ryan opened the box, revealing a simple ring, not a massive diamond or anything ostentatious, but an elegant band with a small, perfect stone that had cost him 3 months of careful saving. "I know we've already built a life together," Ryan said. "We have a house and a daughter, and we're already a family in every way that matters. But I want to make it official. I want to marry you, Lena, not because we need a piece of paper, but because I want to stand up in front of everyone we know and promise to keep choosing you every single day for the rest of my life." Lena's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. "Ryan, you don't have to answer right now," he said quickly. "I know we've already made a lot of big changes this year, and if you need time to think about it—" "Yes," Lena interrupted. "Yes, of course, yes. I don't need time to think about it." She kissed him, and Ryan kissed her back, and the report fell to the floor, forgotten. When they finally broke apart, Lena was crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much. You walked into my life when I thought I had everything figured out, and you showed me what actually mattered. You gave me a family and a home and a life I didn't even know I wanted." "I love you too," Ryan said, slipping the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "You saved me, you know. I was just surviving, just getting through each day. You made me remember how to actually live." They sat together on the couch, Lena's hand in Ryan's, admiring the ring and talking about the future. About the wedding they'd planned, small and intimate with just the people who mattered. About Emma's reaction in the morning, which would definitely involve shrieking. About all the years ahead of them, building on the foundation they'd created. The next morning, Emma's shrieking was indeed loud enough to wake the neighbors. She insisted on calling everyone in their phone to announce the news, starting with Margaret Chen and working her way through every relative and friend she could think of. "I'm going to be the flower girl, right?" she demanded. "I have to be the flower girl. It's the law." "It's definitely the law," Lena agreed, laughing. "The most important flower girl at the wedding." They got married 3 months later in the backyard of their home, under a simple arbor that Ryan had built and Emma had helped decorate. Margaret Chen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. There were maybe 40 guests total, an intimate gathering of the people who'd supported them through the past year. Emma walked down the makeshift aisle, scattering flower petals with theatrical flair, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself. Lena followed in a simple white dress that was elegant without being overly formal. And Ryan stood at the arbor in his good suit, watching the woman he loved walk toward him and thinking about garage doors and crazy requests and the power of taking chances. Margaret's ceremony was short and heartfelt. She talked about the improbability of their love story, about the courage it took to bridge different worlds, about the family they'd chosen to become. When it came time for vows, Lena went first. "Ryan, a year and a half ago, I walked into your garage because I was desperate and lonely and tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't. I expected a few hours of relief from my regular life. Instead, I found my real life. You taught me what strength actually looks like, what integrity means in practice, what it feels like to be seen and valued for who I really am. You gave me Emma, who's the best daughter anyone could ask for. You gave me a home and a family and a reason to wake up that has nothing to do with profit margins or board meetings. I promise to love you fiercely, to support your dreams, to show up even when it's hard, and to keep choosing you every single day for the rest of our lives." Ryan's turn came, and he had to clear his throat before he could speak. Lena, when you walked into my garage that night, you changed everything. You made me believe that I deserved more than just surviving, that I could have a real partner to share the weight with. You chose me when you could have chosen anyone. And you keep choosing me even when I'm stubborn about money or insecure about our differences. You've been an incredible mother to Emma, giving her the kind of love and attention she deserves. You've made our house a home, and you've shown me that sometimes the craziest chances lead to the best outcomes. I promise to support you, to call you on it when you're working too hard, to be your safe place to land, and to love you exactly as you are for the rest of my life. Margaret pronounced them married, and they kissed while Emma cheered and the small crowd applauded. It was simple and perfect and exactly right. The reception was in the same backyard, with catered food from the Chinese restaurant Emma loved, and a playlist that ranged from classical to current pop. Ryan danced with his daughter, then with his wife. Lena danced with Emma, both of them laughing. And as the evening wore on and the lights came up in the yard, Ryan looked around at the life they'd built and felt nothing but gratitude. Margaret found him standing alone for a moment, watching Lena teach Emma a complicated dance move. "You did good, Ryan," she said. "Really good." "I got lucky," Ryan said. "She walked into my garage instead of someone else's." "Luck had nothing to do with it. You saw her when she needed to be seen. You took a chance when it would have been easier to say no. And you built something real with her even when everything said it shouldn't work. That's not luck. That's choice and courage." As the party wound down and guests started heading home, Emma fell asleep on the couch inside, exhausted from excitement. Ryan and Lena stood in the backyard one more time, looking at the space where they'd just promised their lives to each other. "So this is it," Lena said. "We're officially married." "Officially a family," Ryan corrected, "in every possible way." "No regrets?" Lena asked, and there was just a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Not a single one," Ryan said immediately. "You?" "None. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be with." Lena leaned into him. "Thank you for taking that crazy chance with me, for saying yes to a stranger who walked into your garage with an insane request." "Best decision I ever made," Ryan said. "Well, second best. The best was saying yes when you asked to move in. Third best was proposing," Lena added. "Fourth best was getting this house," Ryan continued. "We could keep going," Lena laughed. "We could. But really, every decision that brought us here was the right one. Every chance we took, every risk we accepted, every moment we chose each other instead of choosing the easier path." They stood together in the backyard of their home, married and happy and complete. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully. Tomorrow they'd wake up and go back to their regular lives, with all the usual challenges and complications. Lena would go to the office and navigate corporate politics. Ryan would go to the garage and fix cars. Emma would go to school and bring home homework that needed help. But they'd do all of it together now, officially and permanently. The mechanic and the billionaire who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and built something real from it. Who'd proved that different worlds could merge when two people were willing to do the work. Who'd created a family, not through biology or tradition, but through choice and love, and the daily decision to show up for each other. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real life, with all its messy complications and imperfect moments and genuine joy, and standing there in the gathering dusk with his wife in his arms and his daughter sleeping inside, Ryan Cole knew he wouldn't change a single thing. The end.